OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Good morning, welcome to Friday's OTB AM. It's just gone 7:30 and we've an absolutely stacked show for you between now and 10 o'clock this morning, so stay tuned and get your comments coming into us. Good morning to Shane Hannon, how are you getting on?
Morning, Adrian, how are things?
What's happening up in the wilds of Monaghan at the minute?
Not a whole pile, keeping well. It's the mornings are getting a little bit brighter, it's a little bit less depressing. The seasonal affective disorder is hopefully dissipating for many people across the country. It's a little bit nicer out, I think, these mornings.
Do you have that blood red sun beating down you this morning?
It's nice, yeah. There's a little bit of sun here and a bit of colour in the sky. So it's one of those mornings, but long may it continue. I think the stretch is something we like to talk about a lot here in Ireland, and these are the mornings where we can really talk about the stretch. So
it's not really a stretch, unless it's preceded by grand old.
A grand old stretch. It's not really a stretch unless you really give it the whole thing, I think.
I'm a bit further east than you are, and there is a sensational orange, blood red sun coming your way at some point this morning. It's a cracker, so it's a nice positive note to kick things off on this morning, as it will be for Roy Keane if he picks up his papers today, Shane, because I know he's busy more online these days, but if he goes for the old traditional tabloid this morning, some of them with Roy Keane will be a good fit for Celtic going on, including Richard Dunn in the Herald jumped out at me this morning, saying that there's obviously an emotional tie there. There's a good fit. He's been a long time been the main man in the dugout. It's 10 years basically at this stage now since his time at Ipswich, and he's had plenty of obviously gigs since then in terms of been back up. But it would seem like, to me, it would seem like Roy Keane and Celtic at this time of his career, he's spoken to us in the not that distant past about his thirst to get back into being the main man in the dugout. He really wants to do it. He really, I'm sure, wants to prove himself at this point. There's a lot of chatter about him that he's a bit of an old school manager, and it might be just really what Celtic, who've been backtracking big time over the last 12 months, maybe exactly what they need now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like I almost feel the Roy Keane managerial boat has sailed in some respects, in that he's become a pundit. He is known as Roy Keane the pundit now, and Roy Keane the manager has so far gone in the past, and he said so many things. I think Michael Richards with him recently was kind of slagging him about the fact that he does want to get back into management, and Roy kind of seems to paper over it a little bit and not want to talk about it too much when it comes up on television. But I don't know. I mean, there's other names mentioned, like Frank Lampard's been mentioned. John Kennedy's the interim boss at the moment. And look, Packy Bonner is going with the kind of quirky Jesse Marsh from RB Salzburg in the papers today. You mentioned Rafa Benitez as well. He's looking for a job in Europe, I think. But Roy, I mean, if you're a Celtic player, do you want Roy Keane coming in? He's obviously an ex-player, so he knows the club. He loves the club as well, having supported them as a boy. But he's almost been too opinionated in recent years, which is great for us watching his punditry. But it might be quite tough for him to step back into management, I feel.
Yeah, well, I think that owners typically will be looking at Roy Keane. I'm sure that's a huge part of why he does punditry at all, to be honest, because he's obviously spoken so cuttingly about it in the past, about not really wanting to get involved in it too much. But I'm sure there's a part of that wants to keep himself in the limelight. But so I'm sure owners are looking at that as well. Like, he frequently has very popular things to say in relation to the game. That it's not a complicated game. And I'm sure there are owners out there who are looking at that and thinking maybe this guy is for us, and it's just a case of whether Celtic are one of those clubs. And he's obviously got his ties there. He's played for quite a bit, obviously, for a short time with Celtic, and everybody wants to see Roy Keane back in the dugout. I think for the rest of us who are only partially sated by his cutting wit, and I think Niall Quinn was the subject of it on Instagram last night. Like, you really want to see twice weekly press conferences with this guy and get his take on everything. Sky will be there. They'll be asking him about Steve McLaren's been linked with something, and what do you think about that? And we're going to get all of that. And we crave that, Shane. We crave it, and no better time than now to give it to us.
Yeah, I see your point, and granted, the Roy Keane press conferences back in the day when he was with Ipswich and Sunderland and whoever else were interesting in box office in their own right. And if, God forbid, if a phone went off in the press conference, he took out on them per journalists. But I almost feel like Roy has mellowed in the last year or two, and Instagram is just case study one in that regard. The fact that the man is putting up photos of his dog, his grandkids, old trips away with Ireland. He's getting nostalgic in his older years, Roy.
Well, I will say, Shane, in terms of like the cuddly bear aspect to him, like he had that one last night. He's having a proper cut off Niall Quinn there, right? And I also think that like once he is going to go back into management of some sort. I think that's inevitable, whether it's the main gig or an assistant, whatever it is. I'd say that's just an itch that he needs to scratch, and he's going to make it happen at some point or another, you assume. But I would also assume that once he gets back into that the cuddly bear disappears. Like the Instagram account gets shut down, the Roy Keane baring his teeth is suddenly back front and centre.
I don't want that though. I kind of like this cuddly Roy. I guess to be a manager you need fire in the belly, ice in the head. As the old cliche goes, Roy has fire in the belly and fire in the head. But he was always interesting to watch as a manager. I'd be worried that aspect of his, I guess, character is a little bit waned because he doesn't want it there anymore. He's almost sick of this caricature he's become. That I almost felt that in those press conferences where the press or the journalist phone went off, or the time he went off on Ireland after the Thierry Henry handball and blamed the Irish defence for the goal, he's almost just looking for an excuse, as you said, to stay in the headlines. And that seems to be Roy even today, because it's punditry. That's what he has to do. You can't blame him for saying things that keep his name in the headlines. But as a manager, I'd be worried that he might not have the fire that he maybe once had. I saw Mick McCarthy's name mentioned as a potential Celtic boss as well. He's taken Cardiff into the playoff spot, 6 wins in a row. So maybe Roy and Mick could paper things over from Saipan and come in as a double act, joint managers, assistant and manager.
If there's anything that 2021 needs, I would offer that, as there will be very few things that I think could topple that one. But I think the fire would be there. I think that like he's been granted not necessarily full-time in the dugout over the last couple of years, but like he has also been at the cutting edge of the game alongside like some of the best pundits that we've ever seen. Let's face it, like they've analysed the game in terms of Neville and Redknapp specifically, analysed the game in a way that we've never seen before, and he's had a front row seat for that. I'm sure he's contributes to that. I'm sure he has maybe more interesting conversations with Neville and Carragher and the rest of them off screen than maybe we ever get to see on air. So he's not like somebody who's such a dinosaur that is totally removed from the game and suddenly coming back into a dressing room that he knows nothing about. Like, he's acutely aware. We all know, we see the stories about Guendouzi. We know how players behave these days. He's not that is not lost on him. And I know that like a big part of the story of his managerial career has been his demand of players who were never going to cut it as Roy Keane's. And he ain't getting that at Celtic. Like, that's make no bones about it. Like, I mean, there's no chance that he's going up there to suddenly walk into a dressing room full of Roy Keane attitudes or Roy Keane styles of players. But I do think he's still a hugely relevant voice. I think still with a huge amount to offer. And as I said earlier, like, I think that the maybe the charm with Celtic is that Keane desperately needs them right now, and it's only a case of whether they desperately need Roy Keane, and there might be a case for it, given that, you know, I mean, I think everybody can agree that Neil Lennon wasn't getting the tune out of him that he should have been, and it'd be a good test of the mettle of the players that are there at the minute, and whoever he might bring in to see what Roy Keane can knock out of them.
I mean, the thing about getting a job at Celtic, as we've seen with Neil Lennon in recent months, is if Roy got that job, even if results start to go really badly, he's going to hold on to the job for about 5 or 6 months. There's no pressure at Celtic anymore because Neil Lennon held on to that job for far, far too long, it has to be said, and almost his reputation as a legendary player at the club is decimated at this stage. So from that perspective, Roy could pick up a nice handy paycheck and kind of breathe a little bit further into his contract than he might have at other clubs, because clearly the pressure isn't on at Celtic. Like Eddie Howe is probably a more realistic shout. Some people saying maybe he doesn't have the big club experience, even though he has managed in the Premier League. And Rafa Benitez, I mean, I saw the argument made that Celtic aren't a big enough club for him, that this is a Champions League winning manager at Liverpool, which is a ridiculous thing to say, given, you know, the size of the stadium, the size of the club, the passion of the fans. Granted, they're in the Scottish Premiership, but still in Europe every single year. So while we love to talk about Roy and hypothesize over Roy getting the job, the reality is he's not going to be the Celtic manager. And maybe someone like Rafa would be a better fit. He's
not getting it. That's your take.
I don't think so. I don't even think he's going to be offered that job. I honestly don't think so. Would he take it if he was offered? 100%. But he'd be silly not to. But I just don't see the Celtic board opting for Roy Keane. But having said that, the Celtic board have made some funny decisions over the last number of months, so who knows?
It is true. It's the Roy Keane versus DVG or the Rafa versus DVG axis, any of that stuff, hook it into me, Shane. I'm all up for 2021 is the year. It has to be the year of giving, right? Like that's give us back something. So look, we'll keep an eye on that as it develops over the next while. If you have any thoughts about if you're a Celtic fan or a Roy Keane fan, as may well be the case in this country, do feel free to get your thoughts in this morning as to whether him and Celtic would be a beautiful thing. And a little bit later in the show as well, we've lots of good stuff coming up, including a little bit later we're going to be launching the latest song from the musical artist that you might have known formerly as footballer Stuey Byrne, Stuart Byrne. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a taster of it here. It's a beautiful song. It's called The Game That We Love. Yeah, an absolute cracker from Stuart Byrne, and he's going to join us a little bit later on to talk about that song and the video and the context to it and where he's at with his music as well, because we were chatting to him about the launch of it all last summer, and so it's a bit of a follow-up to that, and always a pleasure and a good chance to catch up with Stewie. So we'll do that a little bit later in the show, and do keep your thoughts and comments as well coming in relation to all of that. But it is 7:42 on this Friday morning, and a very good morning to you. You're watching OTB AM. We're live with in association with Gillette. Good morning start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We've rugby coming up very shortly, but before all of that, Phil Egan is standing by. Good morning to you, Phil.
How are you doing, lads? How are you getting on?
Going good. So before we do anything, Fulham on, is it Sunday?
For
Liverpool
are playing Sheffield United.
All right, okay. I thought
so. That'll be a tough one when they lose to the bottom side in the league.
Well, this is it, and maybe the same point still stands because they're roughly very much in the same sort of postcode, aren't they, at the bottom end of the league. These were games that you and I would have sat here 12 months ago and laughed off as a 3 or 4-0 or not even worth discussing. But
funny enough, actually, the Sheffield United game last season, Liverpool huffed and puffed and couldn't get a goal, and eventually Gino Wijnaldum scored. Dean Henderson was in goal that day, and he led it through it was pretty poor. But yeah, they were the breaks that Liverpool were getting last season, where they always found a way to win. But now at the moment, yeah, like the positive news this week was Jota was back training. Obviously Van Dijk was out on the pitch. But then you get the horrific news about Alisson's father being found dead in Brazil, and you're just wondering, like, did the club let him go back to Brazil? Surely they have to. I mean, I know during COVID times this is a bit more difficult, but Liverpool's season, I can't see that they've much chance of getting into the top four unless.
Really?
Well, if they beat Sheffield United on Sunday, and maybe if they beat Chelsea next Thursday, they have a chance. And the fact that West Ham are playing City this weekend, Chelsea are playing Manchester United this weekend as well, that could do Liverpool a favour by the fact that West Ham or Chelsea might not win those games. But there's nothing to suggest that Liverpool are going to go on a run right now, unless Jota comes in and just picks the whole team up by banging in a load of goals. But the problem is still at the other end as well, where they've no central defenders, or the ones that they have, Klopp doesn't trust. But it was just interesting to see Jamie Carragher, kind of something that I've been thinking for the last 2 months, why he did this on Monday night. He's like, I can't understand why Liverpool's high line is still so high. Just drop it back a bit and give the defence a bit more stability. But look, Jurgen Klopp has a way of doing things he's not going to change, and I'm sure those methods will work again next season when he has his full squad back. Yeah,
the top four thing is in itself just turned into this really interesting thing that you're right. Does Jota fix everything? Difficult to see it. Chelsea United obviously is even in that context is probably the other one that we're looking out for. Both of those games on the on Sunday evening, late Sunday afternoon. What's going to happen here? Is this the unstoppable juggernaut that is Manchester United now, Phil, or the new thing on the block in Chelsea?
Yeah, Chelsea just look a lot more stable now. Like, The game against Atletico wasn't a great watch, and I think watching Chelsea now, they've a lot of possession. They don't have much cutting edge up front at the moment. Look, that takes time. That was something that was levelled at Frank Lampard as well at the start of the season with all these new players they brought in. How could they find their best starting 11? How could they become more cohesive? And that was something that Lampard couldn't do. The signs so far is it's still going to take Thomas Tuchel a bit of time, but he's gone back to a back three, and that was obviously a successful formation for Antonio Conte at Chelsea. So they definitely look a lot more stable. This was a fairly cagey game, the fixture at Old Trafford, when it was a 0-0 draw, and yeah, it kind of has that feel about it where it could be a fairly cagey one and neither team wanting to lose. But United do have a really good record, obviously, away from home, and they've had a couple of really good performances at Stamford Bridge in the last few seasons. Surprised with the team that Solskjaer picked last night. He went very strong, and I suppose a lot of United fans were worried when they saw Bruno's name in the starting 11. They thought, if anything happens in a game that means nothing, in the fact that the tie was wrapped up, then Solskjaer is going to leave himself open for a lot of criticism. But Bruno didn't get injured. He'd be all right, and it'll be interesting to see what plans, if any, Chelsea have for Manchester United, because you think back to this fixture over the last few seasons when Jose Mourinho was in charge of United, and Herrera was basically following Eden Hazard around for the whole game at Stamford Bridge, kicking lumps out of him. I'm surprised more teams haven't gone with this approach with Bruno Fernandes. Just mark him tight. See, I know that he's quite clever with his movement, that he can find pockets of space, but sometimes a bit of physicality maybe would just maybe rough him up a bit, see how he likes it.
Yeah. Still a slightly bonkers decision for me last night, Phil, I have to say, but look, we'll come back to it again. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads.
Thanks a lot, Phil Egan on the line there, looking ahead to the weekend's football and looking ahead to what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock for you this morning with an absolute jam-packed show. We're going to be talking rugby in just a couple of moments' time with double trouble for you this morning. Alan Quinlan and Ronan will be standing by to bring us their thoughts on the latest weekend of SixNations rugby upcoming, and a few other little bits and bobs as well. Besides, we're going to have that live launch a little bit later in the company of Stuey Byrne, his brand new song, which he gave you a taster of in just a little bit. He's the, I don't know, is he the hot new thing in snooker? He's been around a while, but certainly one of the biggest stories of the last 7 days, Jordan Brown winning the Wales Open. So we are going to be speaking to him at 25 to 9 or thereabouts this morning. Daniel Harris will pick through that United draw last night that sends them into the next stage of the Europa League and their season in general. Chelsea, obviously, on Sunday. We'll touch on that as well. Cold cuts, the coldest freezing cold takes of the week, will be coming your way at 9:10. We have a crappy quiz at 9:15, and Brandon Driscoll, who was in conversation with Nathan on the show last night, will be seeing us out just before 10 this morning. So all of that to come, and we're back after these. Or we're not. We're going to stay here. And Ronan O'Gara and Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning. Morning, Adrian.
How are you getting? When it says ads on the screen in front of me, lads, I just got to roll with it. That's the way we work around here. But how's life?
Very well, yeah, very well. Getting ready for a big game against Toulouse tomorrow night. So had a good week's preparation, and weather's getting better. First sights of summer, so pep in my step, Adrian.
Good. And why wouldn't you have? Like, you're the man running the team at the top of the table in one of the most competitive competitions in world rugby. It's all turning up Millhouse for you. That's
a gross exaggeration, to be fair. I think one of the things I learned 20 years ago is, and you don't appreciate it at a young age, I hugely value, I suppose, a united staff, a united group, a united approach. You know, I look at in the soccer now, all the, I suppose, glory goes to Guardiola and all these. You can be sure behind all these, it's a really good team. And, you know, there's so much for me of interest in terms of how you get the best out of your staff, because your staff is like another team. And the team that play, actually, I think they get their drive from what they see with their staff. So there's a lot of mini games going on in the big game, Adrian, that's what I'm trying to say. And yeah, it's good. I think what's important at the minute is probably what we're doing Monday to Friday is quite good. And then you're not looking for miracles on a Saturday, which was kind of the feeling I got a bit last year and being involved with the team. So enjoyable, challenging, but loads to do.
Yeah, we were talking to Philippe Santandre about you a couple of weeks ago, actually, and just to get his impressions of how you were going, and he was very impressed, which seems to be the general sense of how you're getting on in France, obviously, and beat Stade last weekend, same points as Racing, I think, at the top of the table, but with the game in hand. So, but that point that you made was interesting, Ronan, in relation to like last year, you're almost gone out with your fingers crossed a little bit. Now it feels like as if your team and you are at home in that company.
I suppose for me, I'm huge in preparation. I think, having spent time with the Crusaders, it redefined my philosophy, I suppose, in doing the simple things well. I really, really do believe that, but you got to train that, and you got to train that at intensity. And I'm nearly gone away from kind of even full-on training sessions against opposition. If we can't do it at full speed against ourselves, we have no chance. So that's probably an area of interest for me at the minute, is trying to get my team up to speed with just the ball, not defenders. Because if they can't do it with just the ball, how can they do it against defenders? So sometimes early in the week we try to go from point A to maybe point D without putting in the necessary prep work to give players confidence. So I'm at probably an interesting junction in my coaching mind short term about what's the best approach for getting performance at the weekend. Yeah.
And even in the context of what's going on in relation to the Bouclier, like not a club that has tended to win a lot of them, are you trying to quell, is there excitement around? Are you trying to quell that? Are you harnessing it?
But sure, that's why you get involved. You want them to have interest, you want them to dream, and you want them to have something to seek for. Yeah, the history of the club, it's come from the Pro D2, obviously, and it's never won a Bouclier. So that has to be the goal. Can it be achieved? It can. Will it be difficult? Of course it can. But sure, you want to do that. And I think a great saying that I live by is pressure is a privilege. It's not a stress. It's not a hindrance. It's not something that you shy away from. You go after these things, and you want to be as best prepared you can to give yourselves that option of doing it.
Andy Farrell must feel exceptionally privileged at the minute.
Yeah, well, that's like comparing a Ferrari to a Mini. It's different. It's different leagues. It's test rugby is very, very different. It's people, I think, seem to struggle to appreciate the step up from Pro 14, yet alone to European rugby is a gulf. But the gulf from European rugby to test rugby is very, very different. And I think you can see that. It's probably, from the Irish point of view, for people watching, I think what I see, it's a team that it's not in top form and it's missing a little bit of confidence. But that happens. These things, what this team has done, and it's a lot of the same players. They were exceptionally good a few years ago, but a few years ago, unfortunately, doesn't count anymore because the show moves on and it goes on, but it's a lot with the same players. So these guys, where are they going into game 3? They haven't won the first 2, so it's only normal that when you have that, I suppose, automatic kind of instinctive feeling among players, you can see that isn't there. And sometimes those no-look passes, they just stick. At the minute, they're not sticking, or actually probably where we are, no, they're not even attempting to give them. So, yeah, confidence is down, and that's one of the beauties of sport for me is the fact that I can relate it to goal kicking myself. Some days, Adrian, it's just so easy. You can do it with your eyes closed, and then other days you feel you're executing the exact same skill, and you're going, why is that ball bloody going to the left? But it applies to all the micro skills of the game as well.
Can I ask you on that one then, like, just because in relation, you were talking about like the offloading game and almost the style of play, and I had a wry grin when I saw the team yesterday and I saw that there was 11 players in the 15. I thought, no better 2 people to be talking to this morning on the basis of that. But it's an all Leinster backline, Ronan. So what happens here now? Like, is it are we going to see more Leinster-style rugby at the weekend to play to those strengths, or is Andy Farrell going to stick to what we've seen up to now, which hasn't been an offloading Leinster type of game, really?
No, I suppose the way you can flip that is that it's a lot of Leinster players playing at a level higher. It's easier for those guys to do what they do in a blue jersey because the standard is a lower. They're playing against club players, Adrian, in a blue jersey. In a green jersey, they're playing against test players. So it'll be a lot more difficult tomorrow, what day of the week? Tomorrow, irrespective of the opposition. You know what I mean? Italy are the weaker team, the weakest team in the competition. So there will be stuff tomorrow that you can get away with that you wouldn't get away with against the 4 other nations. But Italy, from what I've seen in Twickenham, are improving, and I wouldn't underestimate them potentially as much as I was in previous months. So they looked quite impressive in some aspects against England, but they, unfortunately, when you speak of confidence, they have no idea how to win a game because they're never close to winning a game in Six Nations. So that's the dilemma facing them. In terms of, I don't think you'd see the style change at all, because the back line or the backs don't change the style. The style of how you play a game, Adrian, is dependent on your front 5, basically, in terms of how you get them approaching a contact situation. Do you get them to secure the ball going into contact, or do you want them to try and stay on their feet and play out of the tackle, which would be not, I suppose, a priority in Irish rugby up to now. The prime example of that would be a team like Toulouse, who it's nearly disallowed for them to go to ground, and they try to keep the ball alive at all costs. And I have the words of Axel ringing in my ears when I think of Toulouse, because they hate rucking. You got to get them to the ground. While the flip side of Ireland is they love ruck and they love ball presentation and securing that in terms of keeping a continuity game going. But unfortunately, at times, I think the Irish team have suffered with a bluntness because of their prioritising of the ball carrier and securing the ruck.
Can I just bring in Alan Quinlan, and good morning to Alan as well.
Morning, lads.
On that one. So, Quinny.
Oh, done, lids.
Quinny, when we talk about, as Adrian mentioned there, the Irish style of play, and there's been a bit of talk this week about the attacking philosophy, and Andy Dunn was kind of talking about how maybe Ireland can look to the Super League teams like the Crusaders, who I guess are the complete reverse of the Schmidt and Andy Farrell eras, in that their whole operation is based on having less of the ball. Is that something we can take inspiration from, that maybe the attacking philosophy in this Irish team needs a bit of a change?
I think it's not a first and second and third phase for me, because even in Super Rugby, you still have to, set up different sort of attack, whether you crash up the middle or whether you go wide straight off a line out or scrum. It's really after multiple phases what the shape is like and what the ambition is there, because I'd be interested to hear what ROG thinks about this. Having played with him and having been on the team where he's kicked down the field, and we've loved those kicks. Ireland have kicked 82 times in 2 games, 35 against Wales and 47 against France, which is a lot for me. So if you're talking about attack shape and attacking teams and being more expansive, creating opportunities, well, it's hard to do when the kicks are that much. Now, the conditions tailor how you play in these games, and they're kind of cup games. Six Nations are cup games. Scotland kicked the ball 43 times when they beat England in Twickenham. They won 11-6, and everybody thinks that's a brilliant game because it was competitive, it was enthralling, it was intensive. The underdog was winning. The conditions got very bad in the second half, but you didn't really hear people after the game saying that was a really negative game. Everyone I met and spoke to after says that was a brilliant game. So it's a type of kicks, I think, and the attacking kicks. You're not just kicking. Sometimes you're kicking for territory. Sometimes you're kicking to regain the ball with box kicks and up and unders. But we probably not seen enough of intelligent crossfield kicks and stuff like that. Something that Sexton has done with Leinster, and Roger mentions the fact it's a different level. You don't get those kind of weak edges in international rugby and wingers who are very vulnerable, if you like. But going back to the point of attack, I think for me, and Roger's definitely more of an expert, he's coaching now, but I think it's the shape after the second, third, fourth and fifth phase. What kind of attack shape, what kind of width are they keeping? Are they pulling out to the edges? Getting players to square up and run and challenge that defensive line, because you can't just throw the ball around willy-nilly at first or second phase and think, oh, that's expansive rugby and that's great. You've got to get the fundamentals right, your set piece, your scrum, your breakdown, all that kind of stuff. But I think it's, anytime I ever played in France and you play French teams, when they get their tails up, every pass seems to stick. Every offload seems to be a brilliant offload. And the offloading part of it is something it's probably programmed into us for as young players. And it probably got me into trouble at times over my career. I always wanted to do a big skip 20-yard pass, an offload, a crossfield kick. And, I'd end up fighting with coaches and coaches dropping me or giving out to me about not sticking to the system. So we're very systematic in the Northern Hemisphere. And that was probably one of my own downfalls at times in the way I played. I could, be standing out in the wing or trying to do a crossfield kick. I remember we played Montauban and Limerick one time in the European Cup on a Friday night, round one. And I give a 20-yard pass from midfield, and their fullback intercepted. He scores in the corner, and there's a near silence at Thomond Park because we're behind. There's only a couple of minutes to go, and the man on the other end of the camera got a penalty to get us out, get me out of trouble, and get the team out of trouble. So you can't just throw the ball around. But it's just that kind of approach. Are we running into contact? Are you looking to give a little tip-on pass? Are you putting footwork in there? And, I'm not saying you have to go totally away, because it's absolutely rubbish if you can't just suddenly say every time you carry a ball or every time a forward gets a ball that he has to look for offloads and look for space. But I just think it's a mentality thing, and it's an individual thing in players that, and coaches probably get a rap for this at times, but when you have expansively minded players who want to work little mini plays amongst themselves, it's much easier then to kind of create space. And all coaches love if teams go forward and create line breaks and stuff like that. So we're very good at the other stuff, as Rod said, the breakdown, the set piece, all that stuff we're pretty solid at. But it's getting to the next level now of really asking questions of defence. And it's that shape. It's not just your back line. It's the shape when things get disjointed, little pods working together, creating little mini plays, props, hookers, back rows, and trying to get those offloads. And you look at the first try France got against us in Dublin, it came off the back of brilliant line-out attack, offloads from Jalibert, from Dupont, sniping. And, in the end, there's probably a defensive mistake on Olivon from Gibson Park. He came up and in and he panicked. And that can happen, players, for sure. But he scores in the corner. When we had the lion's share of possession, pressure, intensity, all that stuff in the first half, and they just go up the field and they do something like that. They had 12 offloads in that game. We've 9 offloads in 2 games, alone. So It kind of tells its own story.
Well, on that point, because it was something you touched on as well, Ronan, and feel free to thread in the point about us, whether we kick too much or not. Definitely interested to get your thoughts on that. But you mentioned about that same point in relation to prioritising carrying the ball, maybe sometimes at the expense of an offload. You just had to look at the end, maybe the Wales game, where we were going back, if anything, trying to protect the ball, but going back. How easily is that fixed, or what do you do?
I think you have a responsibility to probably, I think in terms of in the now moment, how easily is a change? I don't think you can. I think you have to chip away with video sessions in terms of, I suppose, informing your players with certain pictures about this for me looks like a 70-30 opportunity for playing the ball on an attack. And this for me, you need to talk. You need to, you're probably not in best position with your feet or whatever to win the contact, to win the collision. So every time you have a chance of playing the ball out of the contact, you need to be in control of the ball. You need to know exactly which arm you're carrying with. Are you an inside or an outside threat being hit? So you have an awful lot of, I suppose, mini decisions to make in your head before you're seeing what picture is in front of you. So, I think it's the younger the player, the easier it is to change, but it takes 3 weeks to change a habit. So in terms of these guys have been doing it so long, for so many years, for so well under Joe Schmidt too, because people, I think with Joe moving on, have had a capacity to knock since he's left. But like, he was a brilliant coach. Why was he a brilliant coach? Because he got buy-in from his players, and you could identify that's a Joe Schmidt way of playing the game, and they were ruthlessly good at it and ruthlessly accurate and efficient, with, I suppose, the asterisk of it not working in the World Cup. And that's the only, for me, I suppose, debate you can have, because but you could see that was a Joe Schmidt team because of the way they played and how ruthlessly accurate they were around the breakdown and keeping ball and just churning and grinding teams down. But they were epitomised by the performance in the Aviva that night against the All Blacks. That rugby was scintillating because it was a bit of everything. It was a change in the point of attack. It was winning collisions, and it was moving the ball away from the point of contact at speed. I agree with Quinny's point, I think, where what you see in the Six Nations is there's games within the game, and the fact that the weather, i.e. England, Scotland, like you can train, and all these test teams have, indoor centres of performance, of excellence, where they probably have a roof over their head. A roof over your head for training and for catching, passing. There's no decision-making or brain power used in terms of catching and passing. It's very, very easy. You go out into a wet pitch with a wet ball, your skills are certainly under pressure, and with line speed nowadays, it's nearly advantage defence. That's where the kicking game comes into it. But kicking aimlessly will never work, Adrian, and that's the example of England, France and Twickenham, when France sent over their third team, and they conceded a last minute try for wasn't it a draw, was it, or to force extra time in the Autumn's Nation Cup. Because prior to that, there was a study that came out that basically all the data was showing the more you kick, the more you win. But that would have been a great example, I suppose, for people, purists of the game, that if that stat was beaten on that day, and France had beaten England, because England were so negative, George Ford didn't play what was in front of him. He completely adhered to kicking the leather off the ball and kicking inaccurately. And that's, I think, what's very exciting nowadays from a coaching point of view, is with teams loading the front line, there has to be chip space and there has to be backfield space. So you either kick the air, you kick the grass, or you kick the second chip line. So for that, everyone expects it to be the kicker, but that's where the Dougie Howletts and the Tupokis of the world, in my world, come into it, in terms of identifying space on the run and communication. Sometimes you don't have to speak, you just got to do something with your hands, or you got to do something with your eyes to the playmaker to enable him to see what you're thinking, i.e. identification of space.
Can I ask you, just before we wrap with you, two quick questions about the more selection issues than anything, but in relation to the 10, like, he's gone for Billy Burns again in the 23, Johnny Sexton starts. A lot of people would have liked to have seen maybe him freshen that up. I don't know, this is a pure fag packet calculation, but we might have somewhere in the region of 20 games before the next World Cup. It's not a lot of games to blood new players. It looks like and Joey Carberry obviously is the second leg of this, back in the bench for Munster tonight, but it looks like he's all in on Billy Burns. Are you seeing what Andy Farrell is seeing?
I think he's all in the short term, and I think you have to be all in. Otherwise, if Billy Burns detects a tiny chink of lack of confidence from his head coach, Billy Burns won't be able to perform to his optimum. So for me, that's a skill of loyalty, of understanding the person before the player in terms of backing Billy Burns. But
that notwithstanding, Ronan, is he the best? Is he our best backup option right now in terms of looking ahead to the next 2-3 years or beyond?
That's most definitely open for debate, Adrian. I like what Ross Byrne has done in the short term, in terms of, I think he's underappreciated. I think his steadiness. I think for me, that five with Johnny works well. I would say all roads most definitely into getting Joey Carberry fit, and I think to end on a note of positivity in terms of to put a backline up against that backline that are playing tomorrow, you can go Murray, Carberry, Bundyaki, Farrell, Earls, Conway, Stockdale. I wouldn't be too sure who'd win that. If you were to go 6 scrums on the left-hand side, 6 scrums on the right-hand side, and one breath, the backline break down the other. So what we are now is that there's competition for places, and the guys that get the nod tomorrow know that they have to perform, which is, I think, a good place to be.
Yeah, all right. And you're excited about Joey Carberry back in the bench, I presume?
Oh yeah, it's huge. It's huge. He's the try he created for Earlsy and Murrayfield when I think his agility, his capacity to explode through tackles, his guile on the ball is something that the country, the national team has missed. What we do need now is extreme patience and understanding that when you're off for 15 months, you don't come back to where you were straight away, especially lower leg injuries. And, it's the same for poor Dan Levy, who's hopefully will get there, but he's another player that sticks out with a massive asterisk that Ireland need.
Yeah, well, look, I hope that privilege of pressure keeps rolling right through to the end of the season. And good luck against Toulouse at the weekend. Quinny's staying with us, but Ronan, for the minute, thanks a million.
See you, boys. Cheers.
Thanks a lot. One thing, Quinny, I wanted to pick up on as well was in relation to, I know Ronan himself wrote in the Examiner last weekend about the 9 and 10 selections being very different things, and that while it might be right, for example, to take Sexton out, conversely, that we, maybe should stick with Conor Murray. And the question I wanted to ask you was, I saw Jamie Roberts talking during the week about Murray not necessarily fitting that thread of a point that we've been talking about here in relation to the offloading, that you need somebody who's in, like the one that stood out for me was John Cooney for one of the Ulster tries last weekend. He's running ahead of the ball carrier. It's not the sort of game we tend to see from Conor Murray. As in he if we want to see an offloading quick game that we've just been discussing, Conor Murray is not the right player. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure he's not the right player. I think he's probably his biggest strength in the last, and with the success for Ireland, has been his kicking game, his defensive work, his simplicity of passing, all that kind of stuff. I remember when Conor Murray came on to train, and in fairness, it is a long time ago with Munster. Before I retired, he was there for a couple of seasons, and he was in a young kid. And I remember doing, playing tip rugby in the warm-ups and stuff like that. And this guy was incredible, running around, making line breaks, stepping, bouncing out of tackles. And we haven't seen enough of that from Conor Murray over the years, because we probably haven't had to see it in the successful period with Ireland, because the ball was quick and it was just move it as quickly as he could, hit runners, hit Sexton. But I still think he can do that, but we haven't seen it. Okay, and I do get your point. John Cooney is different. Gibson Park is different. And I thought Gibson Park did that really well, and coming off the bench in Wales and in the French game as well, the way he can step, hold a little defender, find a little pocket. Can Conor Murray do more of that? Yes, he can, but it's probably, at this stage of his career, it's probably not that natural to him to do that, because he's played with Munster as well in a team that have, been quite pragmatic in their approach, particularly in the period under Rassi, which was very successful, and he brought a team from a level that we didn't expect to get to a different level, getting to the semi-final of Europe and the final of the Pro 14, and they were brilliant that year. And I think it was 2016-17 season. And so Conor Murray it's something he's not had to do. Can he do more of it? Yes, I think so. But probably the others do it a little bit more naturally. And it's probably their biggest strength, where his strength, like Conor Murray's over the years, has been like having an extra defender and an extra back rower, and his kicking game has been a big part of Ireland's success. And going back to the 82 kicks, I'm not knocking him completely for the 82 kicks, but I'd like to see that level a little bit lower. and have a confidence to hold on to the ball more. And like I said, Scotland kicked the ball 43 times against England, and nobody was complaining after the game. I experienced this a couple of years ago over in Twickenham. England beat France. They scored 6 or 7 tries. They hammered them, something in the mid-40s, again, kicking the ball. Nobody talks about all these kicks when you're winning, when you're on the front foot. And particularly in the tight games in the Six Nations, a try can make a massive difference. If James Lowe gets that try against France in the first half, it's probably a different game. Ireland, if they get ahead, well, every one of those 45 kicks then, even the bad ones, are good ones, if you know what I mean. Because, like ROG said, in the conditions, you're kind of chasing. And sometimes when you're ahead, it's easier to defend and keep your shape and force the opposition. Then France are forcing some of those offloads, and Ireland get a big lift out of one of those turnovers if the ball goes loose. But that's getting away from the point of Conor Murray. But you need options. Look at New Zealand with Smith and I'm going blank now with the other scrum half for New Zealand. You can't even think of his name now.
No, it's gone from his own.
The options at scrum half and halfback, you have to have depth there and be able to make changes, and most teams do that, particularly if you want to change up the way you want to play. And we've seen for too long now the level between Sexton and Murray and the rest is too big, and it's a debate that's gone on, and if you had guys springing off the bench in 50, 60 minutes who are top-class international players and guys who can make a real difference, that would enhance the team. And, so Gibson Park has an ability to do that now and put more pressure on Conor Murray. And, he's the one in possession now, albeit Murray's injured. And, the fly half position the same in the next couple of years to try and get more players come through there. And it's brilliant to have Carberry back, as Rod said. Yeah,
we shall see how that pans out, I think, later tonight. And then, obviously, the Ireland game of the weekend. Quinny, thanks a million. We'll catch up with you early next week.
Cheers. Thanks, lads.
Thanks a lot, Alan Quinlan on the line. And Ronan Garrett before that. Looking ahead to the weekend's action, there is probably another hour and a half that you could have spoken to both of them about 100 other topics. And time, unfortunately, has beaten us to it. Plenty of good comments coming in relation to the rugby and our Roy Keane conversation at the top of the show as well. And we'll bring you those in just a little bit. But it is 8:17 this morning. We've got loads coming up between now and 10 a.m. here on OTB AM. There's the crappy quiz. Jordan Brown is going to talk to us about beating Ronnie O'Sullivan. We've football in the company of Daniel Harris, and we're back after these with the exclusive launch of a brand new song by an Irish songwriter.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Off the ball.
Shaw going to pull this one back to the byline, and it's hooked into the goal by Bruno Fernandes. What a finish from the Portuguese midfielder for Manchester United.
Manchester United make the trip to Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea this Sunday in the Premier League, and we'll have full live match commentary for you on Off the Ball. Damien Delaney will be with Stephen Doyle calling that game for us. And before that, Brian Kerr and Nathan Murphy are on duty for Tottenham versus Burnley. There'll be the paper review too with Cleana O'Connor and Johnny Ward. All that and plenty more on this Sunday's Off the Ball, live from 1 until 7.
Off the Ball. Don't miss a moment of the action every weekend from 1 p.m. on OTB Sports Radio. Listen live on the OTB Sports app.
Calling all builders, joiners, plasterers and dryliners. Need advice on the right materials for the job? Consider it done. You need them on site and in your hand. Consider it done. You want access to over 10,000 products from the leading construction brands without having to start up the van. Consider it done. There's another way of doing things. E-Tag. We talk with you to solve your problem and deliver what you need directly onto site. No second guessing, no seconds wasted. Click etag.ie.
Check out the Boyle Sports app today for details on which football match is getting the no-lose treatment this week. Plus, study the form with our Racing Post Spotlight before watching the action with free live streaming on all UK and Irish horse races. See the Boyle Sports app for full T's and C's. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie 18+.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Now it's 19 minutes past 8 on this Friday morning. A very good morning to you, wherever it is you're at. Do keep your comments coming into us. Rugby, football, whatever it is you're having yourself. We want to hear from you. We're going to something slightly different now, something brand new for us. Our last musical appearance here on OTB AM was Rodrigo y Gabriela at the back end of last year. So absolutely no pressure at all on our next guest, who we're going to talk to in a moment. But before all of that, he's allowing us to launch his new single, The Game That We Love. This is Stuey Byrne. Take a listen.
Like Diego in Mexico, we would play in the rain, and even darkness and cold, and true to winter and snow. They were just go for goal, like Milan in the San Siro. We would play.
Yeah, it's called The Game That We Love. It's by Stuey Byrne, and he is on the line. Good morning to you, Stuart.
Morning, Adrian. How are you?
How does that feel? That's cracking.
It feels really nice, yeah. Now it's a very nostalgic song. I'm sort of staring out the window here as I listen to it, and that's pretty much what the song is about, you know. It's very very nostalgic, I suppose, when you consider the year that we've had. God, everything's gone through your head at the moment, isn't it, really? And you really just try to cling on to some of the things that you just miss. I just miss that. I just miss playing football on the road with my mates when I was a kid, not a care in the world, no complications, and just kicking the ball around at all hours at night.
That was the thing that jumped out to me. The like almost like a love note almost for your childhood, as much as football. Yeah,
well, it was. I just tend to sit around, sort of reflecting on things and put things down, and just came out, and I just sort of, you know, as you write any song, you just kind of work with it and you go with it, and all of a sudden it takes you to a place where you just want to be at the moment, like, you know, and that's where it went. And it is like, effectively this song is kind of me in a 3-minute 45-second melody, because it kind of encapsulates everything that I've experienced. Like, my football has been my life. It's given me all the opportunities that I've had in life. I've been very lucky, and I just felt that I kind of maybe needed to put it into a song. And I hope that a lot of people will maybe they'll reflect on it, and it'll draw on memories that people would have had, you know, during the 80s or 90s or even the 90s, when we didn't have very much else other than a football, and a few mates just to kind of kick a ball around, like, you know. And I suppose it's like I say, it's just a very nostalgic look back at when I didn't have a care in the world.
Yeah, I definitely looked at that orange ball and had thoughts of frosty cold mornings and having the foot beaten off you, kicking that thing before it would warm up a bit. And you know, it makes me feel like I'm about 74.
I'm trying to think who would have made those balls, those sort of orange.
I can't remember. It was written on a little plastic bit across the.
They must have been worth a fortune. They probably retired. They probably retired at the end of the 80s or the early 90s, and they're in Barbados or something like that.
You rode it, by the sounds of things, in the last 12 months, did you?
I did, yeah. I think I rode towards the end of last year, yeah. I kind of worked on it myself as well. I did all the kind of production and mixing on it myself. So it probably isn't perfect by all stretch of the imagination, but I just kind of kept it tucked away. And you know, when you write something like this, that's kind of very to your heart, and you tend to get a bit sensitive over these things, and you know, because it's about football, and you kind of want it to be as best as you can be. So I got a little bit touchy with it and changed and things got, and in the end I just said, you know, I'll just keep it stripped back as raw as I can make it. Like, you know, it's very melancholic, which is I'm as we spoke before, Adrian, that's me in a nutshell. Melancholic. I'm happy, sad.
Yeah, congrats on the song, Stewie. It's class. And like, I wasn't around for the 80s. I know Adrian certainly was, but made me nostalgic for a time I wasn't around for. So really, really good video. But speaking to Hector O'Huckagon in the pay-per-view a couple of weeks ago, he was talking about the need to get kids out exercising a bit more. And the video kind of almost hits home that, you know, nowadays kids can't do that. And I guess with COVID, that's just the way life is at the moment. But, you know, when you were a kid and you were, as you mentioned in the song, playing out in Cedarwood Road with other street footballers like Wes Houlihan, like, how important is that for someone's mental health? I mean, when you look back now and see kids maybe today spending too much time on their screens and on their phones, how important is it that kids kind of take a little aspects of what your childhood was like in the 80s?
You know what? It's never more evident than it is now. We didn't realise at the time what, you know, how good this was for us, you know, or how good this was for me even. I was effectively, all I wanted to do was go out on the road, you know. You'd if you were off as soon as you finished school, you'd leg it home, you'd grab the ball, whoever bought whatever ball you were using, whether it was your mates or whether it was yours, you know. Sometimes you'd lose balls, so you'd have to get a ball from somewhere, but you'd be out on the road from day till night, and the only gap would be being called in for your dinner, and you'd wolf your dinner down and you'd be back out again, probably with indigestion for the next hour or so, but you didn't really care. But also what you were getting out of it, exactly, you were just getting so much exercise. I reflect on those times as being a time where I never had a care in the world. I didn't worry about anything, you know. And a lot of kids at that age shouldn't need to worry about anything, you know. That's part of growing up, part of being a child, you know. If you grow up in a happy home, that's, you know, there shouldn't be that complication of worry or anxiety or whatever the case may be. Unfortunately, that is the case for some children at the moment, especially during this environment. But even if you weren't in this environment, there are certain household environments that you know, kids grow up with that stress in their life. So being able to get out onto the road with your mates is hugely important. And I never realised it until much later on in life that, you know, what I was doing was I was effectively practicing to be a professional footballer. Everything I did on the road, even regardless of whether I was out on my own or I was out with my mates playing football, everything you did was a practice session, was a training session, was a technical session. You know, even things like using the curb. You know, you'd run along a pace and you'd dink a ball up over the curb and you avoid the curb, and that's like avoiding a sliding tackle. You know, or just practicing. We had in Cedarwood Road. There's a tree every house, but every third or fourth house there's a tree and a pole with a gap about this much. I can remember Norman Whiteside scoring that wonderful goal in the FA Cup final. And there's this brilliant angle from behind Norman Whiteside where you see the curve. And I remember going, how did he do that? It was amazing. What we didn't realize at the time was it was just a fairly good curve on the ball, but the camera angle caught it in such a way that it looked like Roberto Carlos's free kick against France, that wonderful free kick. So I remember spending hours just going out to the road trying to curl the ball into the gap between the tree and the pole with my left foot. Like, I was right-footed, and I ended up trying to do it with my left foot. So you were just doing what any other kid would do at the time. You were trying to emulate what you were seeing on the TV. We weren't seeing that much of football on the TV, but you were trying to emulate that. Diego Maradona in '86 is another one we scored against England. As Irish people, I think we were as chuffed as the Argentinians were. So you're trying to emulate that. I couldn't emulate Diego Maradona. I realized fairly quickly I wasn't going to be that kind of player. So I quickly changed. But the mental health side of it, do you know what? I'm in my 40s now, and I'm only realizing now how much I miss my mates, my friends. My core friends, the two guys that I grew up with, Lorcan and Chris, were my best mates from Cedarwood Road. I just miss them, miss being with them, miss having the banter with them, miss chatting with them, just want to be around them, kicking a ball. It doesn't matter if it's just against the wall. Because every time we meet up, and anybody will know this about their friends, and again, this particular period in time is teaching us this. When you get together with your friends and you've had a certain background with them, you don't worry about anything else. You don't worry about the bills or your kids or or anything else. You just go back to that. You go back to that 8 or 9, 10-year-old, don't you? And you have a bit of crack, you have a bit of banter, and I just miss that. I miss that the most about everything.
Can I just, as a follow-on to that, a brief one? Like, it's about almost finding the positives then in tough times, because I know we spoke to you before on Off the Ball about Rules of Survival, one of your first songs, and how I think you talked about retiring from football in 2010 amid the financial collapse, and here you are writing another song, this time in the middle of a global pandemic. So how important is it that this songwriting process for you is almost a case of finding positives in tough times, really?
Oh, I think that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what I do. I think all the songs I write are an attempt to find the positives in life. I tend to be quite introverted person. I can be quite quiet. I can have no problems, being up by myself for a long period of time. And that's pre-pandemic stuff. And I found during this pandemic, I've kind of gone into my shell a little bit. And it's like it's kind of like survival mode, I suppose, rather than anything. I've got 4 kids, my wife as well. So I kind of felt I needed to kind of just shelter them. We needed to focus on each other for this particular period of time. So I've kind of hunkered down a little bit. I think everyone's done the same. We've all sort of kind of dug in, hunkered down, and it's very hard sometimes to try and reach out for positives. It's very hard to remember what life used to be like when it was good. It will come back, and we know it's going to come back, but it's very difficult sometimes to see that coming. So you have to try and, I suppose, from my point of view, I just try and imagine myself in those positive situations again. And I suppose what you said is exactly true. It might be fantasy because we can't go back in time. We can't go back to it again. But what we can try and do is when all this settles down and comes to an end, I think what we can try and emulate it again and maybe create new memories. Just look forward to creating maybe new memories. I mean, I know for one thing, when this all settles down, the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to organise a weekly game of 5-a-side with my mates, because I wouldn't have done that in the past. But that's definitely number one on the bucket list.
Yeah, well, look at it's always, as always, it's a great to catch up with you, Stuey, whether it's football or music or whatever it might be. It's a beautifully tender song, I have to say, and it definitely threw me back a little bit. And it struck me as you were talking about your preparation for every game was a preparation to be a professional footballer. I was out just as much as yourself, and it was never going to happen for me. The practice sessions went in, but the games never arrived. But and I'm sure that's the vast majority of people's experience as well. People can check it out on Spotify and on YouTube as well. It's the game that we love. It's an absolute cracker and a pleasure as always. Stuart, look after yourself.
Thanks, guys. Thanks a million. Talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot. Stuart Byrne on the line there. And as I said, you can check that out in full and recommend that you do, because I didn't have listened to it yesterday and had to throw it on a few times. It's an absolute belter. YouTube and Spotify is the place to go and check that out. Now, a reminder that you're watching OTB AM. We're live in association with Gillette. You can Good Morning Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. And a reminder too that you should head along to OTB Sports Radio today, because we've a packed schedule of the good stuff coming your way. From midday, we're going to have our World Cup revisited. It's France 98, and that'll be on OTB Sports Radio. Then at 1:30, it's the Paddy Power half hour, and that'll be Ger and Enda and the lads marking your card ahead of the football fixtures for the weekend. 3:00 Friday Night Racing, Ger and Johnny. 4:00 Team 33. Pat Fenlon is this week's League of Ireland legend. Colm Cooper is the subject of OTB Gold from 6, and then live on your radio from 7:00, we're going to have Niamh Briggs taking the rugby at the weekend. Jen Mangan, who's the special guest with the lads for Friday Night Racing. Jonathan Hill, the newish CEO of the FAI as well, will be along to talk to the lads. So that's what's happening there. And then for the weekend, another belting weekend of sport across off the ball. Tomorrow from 1:00 again on the radio, it'll be Saturday panel, which will be a cricket panel 10 years on, the day that Ireland beat England at their own game. Kevin O'Brien, Ed Joyce and William Porterfield on a panel that you will not want to miss. Following on from another belter last week with 3 legendary commentators. It's Ireland's incredible win over England at the 2011 Cricket World Cup. 3:00 will be OTB Football Saturday. Damien Delaney and Dan along with John for that. And then we'll obviously have all the rugby build-up as well in the company of James Downey ahead of Ireland against Italy. And then on Sunday, as we've tended to do, it's our paper review from 11:30 across OTB social channels. Johnny Ward and Clean O'Connor are going to be the subjects of the paper review this week. 2:00 we'll have live Premier League commentary. It's Tottenham up against Burnley. Nathan and Brian Kerr on that one, and then it's over to Stephen Doyle and Damien Delaney from 4:30 for probably what's game of the weekend, Chelsea up against Manchester United. So that is that. Plenty of comments coming in, and do keep them coming into us as well. We'll get them. We hopefully will get some of those before we leave you at the end of the show today. But now it is time again for something slightly different. It's time to turn our attention to snooker and the brand new-ish Welsh Open champion, Jordan Brown, I'm delighted to say, joins us on the line. Good morning to you, Jordan.
Morning, how are you?
Flying, thanks, and congratulations on the massive win last weekend. Very much the story of last weekend. The main question I wanted to ask you, Jordan, was after the that awkward fist bump with Ronnie O'Sullivan. What was he saying to you?
He was so nice to me at the end. He just elbow bumped me and just congratulated me when they thoroughly deserved it and just to enjoy it. I just tried to keep telling him, it was just an honour to play him in the final. He just says, never mind that. This is your moment and this is your time. So, yeah, lovely guy.
It did look like you were enjoying it there in that final frame. Is that generally the way you tend to go about your snooker, or was it an exception given who you were beating and where you were beating them?
Yeah, I just had a mindset just to sort of go in and play my own game and not the player, because we all know what Ronnie's like. He can sort of steamroll you. But yeah, I just had to concentrate on what I had to do, and going by the last week, I had 4 deciding frames, so it was always counting on myself and backing myself under pressure. So yeah, it was a great match.
Jordan, I was chatting to one of your sponsors since Sunday, Chris from Suter Brothers up in Belfast.
Yeah.
And he was kind of comparing it to, beating Ronnie in a final is almost like beating Northern Ireland beating Brazil, the 1970s Brazil on penalties, the fact that you did it on a decider. And you beat Mark Selby along the way as well, which was, as he said, like, beating Euro 2008 Spain. So you very much did it the hard way. Did it make it a little bit more special that it was Ronnie, someone who was, one of your heroes growing up, that you beat in the final?
Yeah, you just said it there. I mean, Ronnie is one of my idols growing up, if not my my biggest idol, you know, someone who I looked up to since I was a young boy. He was lifting all the trophies whenever I was watching on TV. Always said, if I was ever going to win a tournament, I would love to play Ronnie in the final or beat Ronnie in the final. So, yeah, it was just it made that actually a little bit special, definitely.
Like as recently as 3 years ago, I think you were working in a petrol station, Island Vaughan petrol station up in Antrim. For people that might not be fully aware of your background and maybe the tougher moments in your snooker career, you know, when you're getting up for those early shifts and trying to balance that with snooker practice, you've come a long way since then.
Yeah, it was tough back then, you know, because I was playing, like you say, I was getting up early in the morning, working full time, and any spare hours I had in the evenings, which wasn't a lot, you know, I was always then practicing. So it's all about dedication, and that's something that I've never lacked. And as well as working in a petrol station, I was also working in a kebab shop a couple of days a week, you know, just to sort of make ends meet. So yeah, we're tough, but you know, I think that's what makes you mentally stronger, and I think it made me want it a lot more, especially in recent years. Yeah.
Like when I was looking at the odds before the tournament, I think some people had mentioned that you were a 750 to 1 underdog before the tournament started, and even before the final, there was, the bookmakers weren't giving you a chance. I think it's fair to say. When you look back now, do you see that as disrespectful? Do you see it as about right? Was it extra motivation for you, seeing that really nobody gave you a chance?
I actually don't really pay attention to the odds. You know, I know myself that I'm going to be a huge underdog in the vast majority of the matches I play, you know, and by right, because, you know, I was down the lower ranks, you know, for quite a while. And yeah, it was flattering, to be honest. You know, 751, I only found that out, you know, after my semi-final. So yeah, it was about right, you know, but listen, you know, it's just a fairy tale story, isn't it? You know, because I think that's what, you know, the neutral wanted to see, you know, an underdog, you know, coming from basically nowhere and being unheard of, you know. So I think it's really lit up the eyes of the public, yeah.
I mean, before Sunday, only Alex Higgins, Dennis Taylor and Mark Allen from Northern Ireland had won ranking events. You're the fourth name on that list now. You know, in all of your post-match interviews, I remember you saying that it just hadn't sunk in yet. And I know you had the quick turnaround to the Players' Championship this week. But has it sunk in yet? I mean, we're here, what, 5 days on? I'm sure it's still something that's hard to believe almost.
Yeah, it's hard to grasp, Shane. It's just overwhelming, the support that I've had back home, you know, while I was away. And, you know, even coming back home yesterday, I had a parade in the Antrim town, which is very touching. And coming to I currently live in Portrush, and got a nice welcome home there. It's just hard to take it all in. But yes, I had a quick turnaround, you know, from the final on Sunday night to the Players' Championship on Wednesday. Didn't really have a lot of time to sort of like come back down to earth and get ready for my next match. Because I had so much press and, you know, all that to do. But it's all good problems to have. But yeah, it's feet firmly back on the ground. You know, I want to get back to practicing and get ready for my next tournament as soon as possible.
I mean, the money obviously isn't the be all and end all, but a £70,000 cheque for winning the Welsh Open last Sunday, a hell of a lot of kebabs, to be fair, but I mean, what impact will that have on you? I guess it gives you a bit of leeway to maybe practice more and focus more on the snooker, and it certainly is a bit of a life changer.
Absolutely, life-changing amount of money. I've never even came close to seeing that amount of money before, but I'm not one that's going to be taking it for granted. It's going to be looked after, and all the snooker players know, you know, how expensive the tour is. You know, the expenses, you know, flights, hotels. It's just going to make me live a bit more comfortably, and make me focus on my snooker a lot more instead of, you know, going into matches, you know, seeing dollar signs. You know, it does make life a little bit easier. But yeah, a couple of treats, you know, along the way in years to come. But listen, for now, it's just taking a lot of weight off my shoulders.
Shane mentioned a couple of the legends, the Northern Ireland legends that you're now in the company of. Had you ever had the chance to meet Alex Higgins or to watch him play or even play with him?
Yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting Alex Higgins twice, and it was on my 21st birthday. I was actually doing an exhibition during my way. Alex Higgins walks in the door and just basically lit up a room, you know, because Alex has been, you know, the standard bearer, you know, for Northern Ireland snooker especially. He's I used to watch him. I used to watch the YouTube videos of him, from the World Championships, that famous 6-9 break, the daughter coming out, absolutely idolised him. And but yeah, I met him twice, and both times he was just an absolute gentleman to me, and had a genuine interest in, what I was doing and how I was progressing, as a junior and that, because obviously it was that many years ago now that sadly he's no longer with us.
Yeah, you were a junior at that point, even pre-amateur ranks almost, was it?
Yes. I was, I think I was about 19 or something when I met him. I was just proper coming through then. But yeah, just meeting someone like Alex, I was just in awe of him. But yeah, something that'll live me forever. Speaking to him, he was absolutely brilliant towards me. Yeah.
The comment in here, and I'm going to take it in the spirit that I'm presuming that it's meant here on Twitter when we said we were having you on, from Ian, who said that it was a great win, but you should now be aiming for finals to be a regular thing. And he says, not basking in one superb tournament. We see now that you have the quality to be a top 10 player. How do you take that?
Yeah, massive compliments. It's all about me believing in myself, whether I can make it or not. Obviously winning a tournament, I didn't expect it to happen so soon, but now I've got to set myself some more goals. I want to build on that and make sure that it was no fluke that I won one tournament. And I want to push my way up the rankings now. Top 32, hopefully by next season, top 16 by a couple of seasons. Realistic goals of mine now.
Jordan, can I just ask you about that experience of playing at the Crucible last year, maybe how that stood you in good stead? Because you came through 3 rounds of qualifying and ultimately got to the first round proper, lost to Mark Selby 10-6, but certainly you put up a good fight. What was that experience like? I know it was a bit stranger last year where there was only a crowd for small amounts of the World Snooker Championship, but that experience of playing at the home of snooker in Sheffield, what was that like? It was
a brilliant experience, Shane. Can't describe to you. Making the pinnacle of reaching the Crucible, that's where everybody wants to play. I was always using that experience, carrying forward to this season and for the future, because I could always think to myself in the back of my mind that I've reached the biggest theatre of all, and that'll never be taken away from me. And to play Mark Selby, one of the greats at that venue, even though there wasn't a crowd, but I still soaked up every moment, and no matter what the result, I was going to stand me in good stead for the future. And especially, I played Mark Selby in the quarterfinals of the Welsh Open, and I had sort of like a bit of revenge, to go into that match, because I felt like I played pretty well at the Crucible, but I missed a couple of chances and felt like I should have won that one. So yeah, it definitely bang up for for example, that match as well. So.
You mentioned a couple of the people after you won that were so important to you, and your dad was one of those people. I think you said in your interview straight away afterwards, I wouldn't be standing here today without him. So how important was someone like your dad to your progress over the years?
Never a true statement. It came from the heart, what I said. My dad is, first of all, he bought me a snooker table for Christmas when I was only 5 years old. I was knocking balls about in the living room while my mum and dad were trying to watch the TV. It was a bit of a nuisance over the years, but my dad started taking me to junior tournaments, so when I was 13, 14 years of age. He came with me everywhere. No matter what the result, I had a lot of lows, and he was with me through each and every single one of them. So, I have him to thank, because financially as well, he thoroughly, helped me, over my career as well. Couldn't have done it without him, that's for sure.
Well, look, it was an absolute pleasure watching it last week. Congratulations to you again, Jordan, and continued success. We'll catch up with you again down the track. Good man.
Anytime. Thank you.
Well done, fair play. Jordan Brown on the line there, the 2021 Welsh Open. One thing that's striking me as we work through the show is that so many commonalities with the various people we've had on and their experiences as kids of playing sport, because we had a Steve Davis pop black table in our front room, but needless to say, that never amounted to anything for me other than a lot of rows, my brother. That is definitely one thing for certain. Okay, plenty of comments coming in on our chat about Roy Keane earlier on. When Ryan was saying that, good morning, Keane is almost perfect fit for Celtic. Figurehead-wise, it would generate big headlines and stop Rangers and Gerrard's head of steam. Agree with most of that. Not fully sure about the last bit. Paul McGee says in relation to our song there from Stuey Byrne a bit earlier on, great song, memories of doing the same around the streets of West Belfast in the late 70s. Cheers, Stuart, he says. That's from Paul McGee. Cavan Laddie used to kick a ball around the farmyard. Good times. And plenty more comments on that. It's brought back a lot of memories for people, it turns out. And one on the rugby from Mel McCaughey says, has Joey Carberry's absence artificially boosted his quality? I mean, that could be true, but it could also equally and more likely be true that he is the best option that we have at as backup to Johnny Sexton at half. I think that is a strong likelihood. Okay, so that's where we're at the minute. We've still plenty to come. Crappy quiz and cold cuts, lots more as well coming throughout the show between now and 10 o'clock. But for now, we're going to turn to football. Daniel Harris, football writer, joins us on the line. Good morning to you, Daniel.
Hiya.
I don't know what to say about last night. What do you want to say?
Not that much. It came, it went. I actually didn't think it was that terrible a game, especially in the first half. But ultimately, when there's a first leg won 4-0, I mean, the last time I can think that United won the first leg 4-0 against Porto in 1997, the away leg was also, the second leg, was also goalless because everyone knows the game's finished. Had Sociedad scored that penalty, then who knows, might have got a bit interesting. But otherwise, the time was finished in the first leg. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, I have to say that I know there was a lot of United fans with a sharp intake of breath when they saw the starting 11. Like, it was a big gamble putting Fernandes in. He got away with it in the end, and so it all looks fine. But a needless gamble almost from Solskjaer.
I guess I would have preferred not to see him, but I think what happened was that most of the midfield were injured. Pogba was injured, Tominay's injured, Van der Beek is injured. So he really only had the senior Mata's injured. So of the senior players, he only had the three that started. I'm not sure if Fernandes would have played had other players been available, but I think Solskjaer at the moment particularly, he's being quite conservative. And so you would think that 4-0 would be enough against almost any team, but Real are good. They're not, like United did beat them 4-0 and make them look not good, but they're not a bad side. So if you play half the youth team and Sociedad score early, then you could end up looking quite silly. So I can see why he erred on the side of caution. And I would say Bruno only played 45 minutes and probably didn't do that much running. And so I wouldn't have thought that it's likely to affect him all that much.
Daniel, can I ask you about Dan James? His performance again last night was fairly typical of his time in a United jersey up to this point. There was so much fuss obviously made about him, and rightly so, when they brought him to the club. But there was a snapshot last night where within the space of a couple of minutes he'd given away a fairly clumsy penalty and had put in a brilliant cross to almost set up a goal and almost grab a goal himself as well at various points. Is this just what we're going to see from Dan James throughout his United career? Is that the sort of player he is typically?
I'm not sure. I mean, he was bought really as a punt. He cost 15 million quid, basically the change down the back of the sofa after all that summer's transfer budget had been spent. And at the moment, he has kind of been there for specific games. I mean, he played a lot at the beginning because there was no one else. But then once other players became available, he's someone that you might use if you're defending a lead or if you want to play on the counter. And he got a lot of aggravation last season, but actually he played pretty well in some games. Particularly United's best performance last season was probably the away league game away to Man City. And James was excellent in that game. So I think that no one particularly expected all that much from him. And he seems to be improving. So I don't think that anyone expected him to turn up and become a first choice immediately. If he becomes good enough, then good. And if he doesn't become good enough, then that doesn't mean he's not worth having in the squad and he doesn't have any use as a member of the squad. So I think that what we're seeing at the moment is not the finished article, but is a better player than the one that we saw a year ago. And that's a good thing. I mean, if he wants first team football every week, it seems unlikely that he's going to get that ever at United. But he could definitely become good enough to get enough games across the course of a season to be satisfied. Although you tend to only be able to keep players in that circumstance if you're winning.
Morning, Daniel. Can I just ask on the United defence front? So I was reading a piece about Harry Maguire this week in The Athletic, talking about he's been involved, I think, in 11 attacks that led to goals. One of these kind of obscure stats that people pluck out. But clearly he's very much a part of Solskjaer's plans. We had a chance to see Lindelof and Bailly together last night, and they kept a clean sheet. And there have been rumours of United dipping into the transfer market. Sergio Ramos has been one name mentioned, but From last night's evidence of Lindelof and Bailly together, would you lean towards either one? And I guess the second part of the question is someone like Ramos or any others. Who do you think maybe could or should be brought in?
I doubt it'll be Ramos, but I think that Bailly is a better partner for Lindelof and Maguire than they are for each other. But it's not as straightforward as that. I think Bailly is kind of perceived as someone who makes outrageous errors, and I think the madcap behaviour of which he is capable doesn't necessarily make his errors any worse than those that Lindelof and Maguire make. They're also capable. The errors they make just look a bit less glaring, but they equally lead to the concession of goals. I think the main thing for me about
the mistake last night was pretty glaring. He nearly the guy how he didn't get a red card for that, I'm not sure.
I'll tell you exactly how. I see it looked bad, that, but what actually happened was the cross corner comes in and Lindelof attacks it like a normal person would attack it, and Batista didn't jump, so he took a knee in the face. So I understand that the goal was disallowed because you can't look at footage of someone getting flying kneed in the head and say, well, play on. But the reason that happened is because usually Batista or any defender in that situation, people are attacking the ball, they jump. And he just didn't jump.
That was a fair contributing factor, but Lindelof's jump in itself, if and it's difficult, I appreciate, because the player himself, as you say, is literally static and turns around with his face right into his knee. But Lindelof's jump in itself was so unnatural. Like, what's he doing in that position? He's no chance of getting near the ball. His knees are up in the air. He's clearing the way.
He wasn't getting the ball, it's true, but I think that what he did is probably not that different from what you would ordinarily see at corners. It's just usually everyone is doing something, and Batista didn't do anything. But back to the original point, because I think that Lindelof and Maguire are more than error-prone enough, I wouldn't put them above Bailly in terms of not making errors, because I don't think that there's a huge difference with that. The thing with Bailly is he's not fit that often, and so it makes more sense in some ways to just go with the two that are almost always available to you. But the most significant difference that Bailly makes is obviously the fact that he can run. So that means that Maguire, or whoever, even if it's Lindelof, I mean, it wouldn't be, it'll be Mark Maguire because he's captain of the team, but means that Maguire can go and attack the ball or can bring the ball out knowing that he's got cover behind him. But even more than that, it means the whole team can play 10 yards further up the pitch and condense the play, and it makes it much easier to pin the opponents back. I think the away game against Burnley, United only won it 1-0, but for about 20 minutes in the second half before they had the goal, they were able to up the pressure until they scored. And I think one of the main reasons they were able to do that is because they had Bailly, so they were able to play much further up the pitch. So I would be picking Bailly if he was fit. But if it was my job that was on the line to pick the centre-backs, I would also be thinking quite hard about not picking Bailly, because you can't rely on his availability.
Daniel, I know United Rewind is some of the old nostalgic United clips you have up on Twitter, but one of the clips I saw separate to that in the last couple of days was the Marcus Rashford double against Midtjylland 5 years ago. 5 years ago yesterday, in fact, I think it was. And there's a great video of the celebrations and that game where he actually wasn't due to start as an 18-year-old. Martial gets injured in the warm-up, and the rest is history, really, in the last 5 years. I think he's overtaken Eric Cantona and drawn level with David Beckham in the United scoring charts. Maybe just a word on your memories of that Midtjylland game, looking back, and really what Marcus Rashford has achieved in those 5 years.
Well, it's funny, really, isn't it? It's like one of the few good things Louis van Gaal did at United, and even that he didn't really mean to do. Rashford was on the bench and only played because Martial got injured in the warm-up. But, I mean, I think that he scored goals in those first couple of games. He scored twice against Midtjylland, as you said, and then twice against Arsenal. There wasn't a lot in those games that showed you he was the player that he is, because, I mean, the 2 goals against Midtjylland were proper tap-ins. And actually, funnily enough, the kind of goals he doesn't score enough of. If he was able to start adding those goals on a reg, then he would be a much better player, because many of his goals are bangers. And he doesn't quite have the instinct of a centre-forward. And if he can add that and score a lot more free goals, then he will score quite a lot more goals, because those goals are always available. I mean, he plays on the left now, he's playing centre-forward then, but he should be getting goals at the back post. He should be. I mean, we see Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah doing it a lot for Liverpool. But when he made that debut, you knew that he was electrifying quick, because that was what was known about him. And the more you saw of him, he then scored brilliant goals later in the season against West Ham and Man City. So you could see that he could beat a man and he could score the difficult ones. But what you didn't understand was the cultural icon and absolute superhero that he was going to become. And Marcus Rashford has transcended Manchester United, he's transcended football, and he's saving the world. And no one knew that was going to happen. And all the football achievements in the world that you could stack up will never come close to the social difference that he's made, the difference he's made to social justice in this country, and the difference he's going to continue to make after he's long dead by the inspiration that he has given other people to do the same thing, and with the better lives that he's given people who have been less fortunate than he has.
Yeah, absolutely incredible story off the pitch. Much more than any other conversation we could have about Marcus Rashford or any other footballer for that matter. But the Chelsea game, obviously, on Sunday, Daniel, I'm sure suddenly this game has taken on a bit of a different light. United obviously in decent form, and Chelsea cooking along in a way that didn't seem all that likely a month ago. What does it all mean for the outcome on Sunday? I
probably would be accused of being biased journo in saying United are a better team than Chelsea. I think they are. I think the league table shows that. But Chelsea are capable of hurting United. They've got some good players. I don't think that Thomas Tuchel knows what his best team is yet. That's not criticism. He's only just got there. It's sort of Mason Mount and then some of the others. But Chelsea they're in good form, relatively speaking. They don't look that deadly or that creative going forward. But if they play well, then that's a really hard game for United. And it's a game that Chelsea really could do with winning. For United, a draw would not be a terrible result, particularly if Leicester don't beat Arsenal. I think that it's probably fair to say that the title has gone now. So what United need to do is try and make sure that they finish in the top four and try and come second. And it's probably them, Leicester, Chelsea, Liverpool. That is more or less, if I've forgotten anyone, that is more or less the competition. They would do quite badly to get 9 points fewer than Liverpool from here, but a win would basically make it very, very difficult for Chelsea to finish above them and would take them much more of the way there. But a draw would not be a dreadful result. So I think in terms of the game that we're going to see, United, apart from the cup game against Liverpool, where what they did was they went to go and impose themselves on decent opposition, they're still a bit conservative in the bigger games. They drew 0-0 at Arsenal. They lost 1-0 at home to Arsenal. They drew 0-0 at home to Chelsea when Chelsea were really tottering and asking for a slapping. They played Man City at home just before City really got going in the way that they became all of a sudden this outrageous winning machine. And I think they sort of paid for that, accepting a 0-0 at home to City, because if they'd gone and won that game, it might have been harder for City to go and begin that run. So what I'd like to see is United go and impose themselves. And I think that was what we saw Chelsea do against Atletico in midweek. I think Tuchel realised that Atletico are top of the Spanish league, but the Spanish league is not a strong league at the moment. But even so, he didn't go and play their reputation, and he didn't go and play the occasion. He sent his players out to go and be better than the opposition. And United are slightly limited because Pogba's not fit, and that means that whatever midfield plays, a lot of the creative responsibility rests on Bruno Fernandes. And if Tuchel and Chelsea are able to keep him out of the game, United are relying on their wide players, and that is harder than having two brilliant players like Pogba and Fernandes in the middle of the midfield that are just better than anything that Chelsea have in terms of chance creation. So it is a slightly harder task to go and impose, but as I said at the beginning of this answer, United are a better team than Chelsea, so they should be looking to go to Chelsea and assert themselves and cope with whatever Chelsea chuck at them. I'm not sure that that is what we're going to see, and my guess would be we see another low-scoring game because United will probably play to kind of keep it tight for half an hour and then maybe go and try and commit to win it in the last half an hour, but it can be hard to do that. And I think Chelsea aren't doing that well at making chances, and their combinations aren't quite there yet. So I think that, we'll probably see quite a cagey game, but with all those good attacking players on the pitch, I could be talking complete nonsense and we could go and see something really good.
Daniel, a lot of people give Thomas Tuchel credit for his tactical decisions, and I guess have him in this managerial level or tier, maybe slightly above Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But Solskjaer has proven a couple of times against Tuchel teams in Paris, against PSG, that he has the tactical nous at times to compete with Tuchel teams. So are we a bit unfair maybe on Solskjaer that we have him on this managerial level below Thomas Tuchel, or is that a fair enough assessment at this stage?
Thomas Tuchel has won bigger competitions than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I mean, it's really like that. That's quite simple. So it's not unacceptable to say that he is superior. I'm sure he's a better coach than Ole as well. But management is not all about coaching. Ole doesn't do that much coaching. What Ole's good at is he understands that football is a simple game, and he's really good at getting the best from his players. As you say, on the tactical side, there are loads of examples of him getting it absolutely bang on. And that tells you that he knows something. There are too many examples of him getting it really wrong as well. So he's learning. I mean, he's a much better manager now than he was when United appointed him 2 years ago. And I'm sure he'll be a much better manager than that in 2 years' time. Tuchel's a slightly different thing. I mean, I'm sure he is a good man manager, but for him, football is slightly more complex. There are lots of different ways of playing football. That's one of the reasons we love it so much. And for Tuchel, it's much more about systems. I mean, he's more of a technocrat. It's more about systems, and he changes systems every game, and he changes players every game. I think with Ole, he's changing a lot of players during the games at the moment, not particularly because he wants to, but because there are so many games coming so quickly. And if you look back, even as far as last season, unlike, I think, any other British side, United went almost to the end in Europe, and almost to the end in the Premier League. So when teams came back after lockdown and they weren't fit, Liverpool were already champions, Man City were already not champions, so most of their games didn't have anything on them. Whereas United's league games, they had something on them all the way through until the last game of the season, and then they played two more Europa League games, and they only didn't play the Europa League final. Then all the players went off and played internationals and basically came back without any pre-season, which is why you saw United get walloped by Palace and walloped by Spurs and almost walloped by Brighton at the beginning of the season, and why you're seeing United changing players now. They went to the semi-finals of the League Cup, they're still in the FA Cup, they're still in the Europa League. So you're seeing Ole make loads of changes, and I don't think that's particularly because he wants to. I think it's because that is how you've got to keep players fresh, whilst at the same time realising that he can't really do without Maguire, Rashford and Bruno Fernandes, who play almost all the games. So the teams that you see him select, you always have to kind of think about that is really what's going on here. So with Tuchel's changing players, I think, because he's thinking more tactically than Ole is. It's more about what can he do to exploit what that team does badly, and what can he do to stop them doing what that team does well. And Ole is more about trying to maximise what United do well in the first instance. So two different ways. I don't think one is right and one is wrong. And actually, I would like, in some ways, to see Ole move further away from what Tuchel does, because I think, apart from City, United probably have the best players. And when you have the best players, you obviously have to pay attention to exploiting your opponent's weaknesses and limiting their strengths. But what the main thing you need to be doing is you need to be going out there and you need to be playing with freedom and imposing what you do best on that team. And when Ole's teams are at his best, it's when they're doing that. So I hope that's what United do against Chelsea, but I'm not sure that's what will happen, because I think they're still a little bit conservative in the big games, and he doesn't quite trust the defence to allow the players in front of them to go and express themselves. And I'm not sure the balance isn't quite right, because if you look at the way that Liverpool play, they have three runners in central midfield. The creativity comes from the fullbacks, who also provide the width, which means the wide attackers can attack the goal. United, they don't play with runners in midfield. They have a creator in midfield, which is Bruno Fernandes, which means that you have to, the balance in midfield of, you don't want all the creation to come from him, but the fullbacks, Luke Shaw is getting really good at creating chances, and Wan-Bissaka is getting better, but they don't have that balance quite there yet, and they need to protect a dicky defence. But they are getting better at doing that, and I think that they will continue to improve, and when they're able to probably sign another centre-back and perhaps a number 6 in the summer, you'll see a team at that point, there will be absolutely no excuse for not going for it in absolutely every game, whoever it's against.
Just very briefly, Daniel, before we let you away, some chatter over this side of the water this morning about potentially Roy Keane for Celtic. It's 10 years since he was the full-on manager at any club. A good fit?
I don't know. I mean, definitely a better fit than Neil Lennon was. That seemed like an absurd retrograde step after you've had a really progressive, forward-thinking and excellent coach like Brendan Rodgers to then go back to someone who is just less good, ultimately, would be an error. I mean, I'm sure that Roy Keane is also less good than Neil Lennon, but you never know with Roy Keane because he does understand football. He understands what it takes to win. He knows what it takes to play good football. I mean, I guess it might also be considered a retrograde step, and he's someone from whom the game has moved on. But ultimately, like it's really interesting when you see Roy Keane analyse the game, and again, like when he's analysing it when he had that set to with Jurgen Klopp, or when he was talking to Tim Cahill about Mikel Arteta and Arsenal, and I think people were kind of like laughing a bit at Roy Keane, saying he's just a proper football man. He's just doing that whole old man thing about football was better in my day. And it's all about mentality and it's all about talent, but kind of is. And he was, I felt like, proved to be right in some aspects with that argument he had with Jurgen Klopp, and proved to be right in almost every aspect of that argument he had with Tim Cahill about the relative merits of United and Arsenal. So if he is able to bring the good aspects of him and quieten the bad aspects of him, then that would be interesting. I mean, we've seen with Jose Mourinho, what's happened with him is the bad aspects have basically subsumed the genius aspects. And that's why we see him basically managing every now and again to pull something out, but largely failing at United and failing at Chelsea, not for the second time in the end, and failing at Tottenham now. If Roy Keane allows himself to be eaten up by the darkness that means that he struggles to relate to some players, then that would be a problem. With Alex Ferguson, the thing about him was, despite the outward hardness and toughness and in demanding the will to win, he understood how to talk to all sorts of different characters, which meant that he was able to not do as much tactically or as much coaching as other managers, because he was just getting the best out of everyone. And if you get the best out of everyone, then you're going to have a really good chance of winning stuff. If Roy Keane is able to adapt those aspects of himself, where the people that need the tough love and they need the kind of the inverted commas Roy Keane, the character of Roy Keane, there'll be people that need that. If he is able to give that to the people that need it, but to give a gentler, more understanding side of himself, even if he doesn't totally understand the people that need that, then yeah, Roy Keane could do something interesting, but he might need some good coaches too, some good people around him.
Yeah, we should watch with interest. Daniel, thanks a million.
No worries, lads. See you again. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. You too. Daniel Harris on the line there. Looking ahead to the weekend's games and a bit of reflection on United as well. It is 9:12 on this Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM, the sports breakfast show from OTB Sports, and brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We're going to hear from Brian O'Driscoll and John Giles before 10 this morning. There's a crappy quiz up shortly, but up next this morning at OTB AM, we're going to bring you this week's cold cuts.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Looking for a football show with a bit of a twist? Team 33, the football magazine show for the football purists.
And it's been a complete failure for English teams in the European formats this year, Colin.
I don't know.
Come on, it has! They had one team in the quarterfinal.
The very best interviews with the cult heroes of the past, and a look at the cultural side of football. Team 33. Live at 9 p.m. every Friday on OTB Sports Radio. Live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
Check out the Boyle Sports app today for details on which football match is getting the no-lose treatment this week. Plus, browse through dozens of new player markets, all powered by Opta. Shots on target, left foot, right foot, headed goals, assists and more. See the Boyle Sports app for full T's and C's. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie 18+.
Tom Watson, you're welcome to Golf Weekly.
Hey, this is going to be fun.
Very happy to say European captain and, of course, three-time major winner Padraig Harrington joins us.
Today's special guest on Golf Weekly is Lee Westwood.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm honoured and delighted.
Let's bring in Paul McGinley, who joins us now. Paul, you're very welcome.
Shane Lowry, how are you keeping?
I'm good, thanks, yeah. Well, I'm as good as I can be.
The biggest names in golf and Ireland's best golf podcast, Golf Weekly, now exclusively available on Patreon. Go to otbsports.com/Golf Weekly to sign up now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
All right, it's 9:15, OTB AM on this Friday morning. It is that time of the week where we serve it up, our takes colder than the career prospects of Thierry Henry and Neil Lennon combined. It's Cold Cuts.
I am flabbergasted. Maguire. And De Gea. Shocking. I'm disgusted. Maguire. And De Gea. Get close to people. Move your feet. Move your feet. Maguire. And De Gea. I am flabbergasted. I'm not too happy with all that. No. Maguire. I would be swinging punches at that guy. De Gea. Swinging punches, swinging punches, swinging punches, swinging punches. Maguire. And De Gea. I'm fuming here watching this game of football.
We'll be coming back to Roy Keane in just a couple of moments' time, but we're straight in at number 3 this week on the Cold Cuts, and he's a regular around these parts, of course, and Richard Keys is back again. He's been absent for a couple of weeks, but now down to number 3 this week, but worthy of inclusion, we felt, nonetheless, and another top blog, top blog on richardjkeys.com. Here he is. We're keeping the man in clicks. It's worth every dirham, it has to be said. Here he is back in his old pal Moisey. Brilliant, David, on West Ham's climb to the lofty heights of 4th in the Premier League. I'm so pleased, says Keysy. I also hope that the Hammers fans now realise that I was right, which is what it was about all along, Richard. Let's face it. He says British coaches are just as good as their foreign counterparts. Everyone needs time and support. So go those British counterparts. I mean, these foreigners coming over here, Shane, and taking the jobs of the locals. We're probably, just as qualified to do them, those locals. But no, in they come, immersing themselves in British culture, often improving it, as you can see there, at Johnny Foreigner.
Yeah, Keys loves Brexit. Who knew?
Who knew?
Brexit.
In at number 2 on this week's Cold Cuts, another regular is Eddie Jones. His former fullback Mike Brown has had a pop at the England head coach this week, saying that he once challenged him as to why he wasn't selected. It didn't go down well. Eddie says that he took umbrage and he let him have both barrels. I mean, who'd have thunk it? Eddie Jones, both barrels? I mean, I think not. But said Eddie, how do you know the players have not been challenging me? He told reporters. We have a shared responsibility, and there is a forum for players to speak up, and it'll be hard for me to say that we have a dictatorial system, which is what Mike Brown is alluding to. He's entitled to his opinion, and I'm sure he gets well paid for it, said. And needless to say, very calm, I'm sure, Eddie Jones. No dictatorship around here, Shane.
I think he likes to think of himself as a different type of manager than he actually is. He wants to be this little cuddly figure, the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer hand around the shoulder type manager, Eddie Jones, but he's just not. I mean, he's got a complete lack of awareness as to what type of manager he is. I'd say he's terrifying to come across in the dressing room. There's Alex Ferguson vibes off Eddie Jones.
Well, speaking of which, in at number 3, we've gone all soft and cuddly ourselves, Shane, for the in at number 1, I should say. We've gone all soft and cuddly for number 1 spot in Cold Cuts this week. No place in Cold Cuts at all, other than needing to bring this to your attention, really. This is the cliff notes of why we're bringing this one to you. Did you know, nobody's aware of this, but Roy Keane, Shane, he's on Instagram. Nobody's aware of it. We're breaking news this morning. Look at this lovely, cuddly photo of Roy and his grandson from last week. I mean, imagine with that kid, by the way. Oh my God, Roy Keane is my granddad. At some point, he's going to realise that it's the greatest thing ever. But much more than that, as we were picking through that, we suddenly realised that Cold Cuts got to thinking about who was that Roy Keane actually reminded us of. Once you see it, there's just no going back. Roy Keane is Simon Cowell.
He needs the teeth done though, Roy, a bit, doesn't he? He needs to get that teeth whitener out, because Simon Cowell, you'd need sunglasses looking at Simon Cowell's gnashers there, I think. That's terrifying. Wow.
Yeah, as it turns out, it's very difficult to get either a picture of Roy Keane smiling or Simon Cowell scowling.
Do you think Roy Keane's an X Factor fan, a Britain's Got Talent fan, whatever show Simon Cowell's on these days?
Oh, I'd say he's all over it. Him and his grandkids sitting in with a cheeky takeaway on a Saturday night, Shane. You know it. That is this week's Cold Cuts.
I am flabbergasted. Maguire. And De Gea. Shocking. I'm disgusted. Maguire. And De Gea. Get close to people. Move your feet. Move your feet. Maguire. And De Gea. I am flabbergasted. I'm not too happy with all that. No. Maguire. Maguire. I would be swinging punches at that guy. They hear swinging punches, swinging punches, swinging punches, swinging punches. Maguire. And they hear. I'm fuming here watching this game of football.
All right, we have Brian O'Driscoll coming your way before 10 a.m. this morning, but right now it is Friday morning's OTB AM and it's time for the crappy quiz. Chris Bond.
Oh, you're kidding me. September. Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
No. Is that right?
I know, it's not right.
Anybody else? Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It is the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday we pit three of team off the ball up against each other in a no-holds-barred quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants. Our first contestant today was giving it the big one last Saturday night as Connacht smashed the Cardiff Blues to prove that, yes indeed, Welsh people are crap at rugby. His family were concerned by the topless man in the living room celebrating Alex Wooden's second try, but when they realised what was at stake for Dad, it was all okay in the end. It's the mustachioed menace, Ger Gilroy.
Woo.
Welcome back.
Screw you, Wales.
We can't see you here, so any of the facial expressions that are made by Ger is for you exclusively at home, not for us. Our next contestant today was called a minor player by an unnamed press officer this week, which to some might be an insult. But to this man, it took him back to the days of being a promising minor for his club, of trading in county status for a summer of pint bottles, country nightclubs, and attention from the opposite sex. The press officer knew who he was talking to when he called this man a minor player. It is the beast of the Ballyhaunis Miners circa 2001, Nathan Nate Dog Murphy.
Unfortunately, I wasn't the beast of the Ballyhaunis Miners. I'd long since given up the football by then. I was more a wonderful soccer player, being denied my opportunities at a higher level. So I'll have to. That intro is totally incorrect, Owen.
You're a football man.
Can I just ask?
Go on.
Can I just ask? Where's Phil Egan? I was told, come on this week, Nathan. You're going to have a bit of a test. We'll actually, push you to the pin of your collar. We're going to have somebody who knows anything that can maybe get within 5-6 points of you. And I look, and it's the same two again. Tommy Rooney, who looks like he's been dragged out of bed, and Gilroy. So let's get through this week and get Phil Egan in. Let's have a relegation battle between the two lads as well. So not only shall we have a winner, we'll have somebody being relegated.
It's funny how you revealed yourself in all your glory this week when you claimed erroneously that Liverpool, if Van Dijk had been fit, would have won the entire league. You would have won the entire league, and then afterwards you made us edit it out. You were like, no, that cannot be. My Twitter handle will not be able to survive today if you push that line, even though I said it. I actually said it, and probably believe it. I just wanted to reveal it. You have revealed yourself to be, in the grand traditions, a massive penis. But that's okay. Tell me, not have, I said, reveal yourself to be, just for her clarity's sake there.
Wow.
Come here.
It started as an insult, but it seems to have turned into a compliment here.
Name names, Nathan. Who was the press officer who was calling you a minor player?
I won't be naming any names. And I think you'll find...
That's the most Jerry Gilroy minute of radio I've ever heard in my life.
Name names.
I don't know quite what's happened there. Firstly, that comment about Liverpool is still very much online and has not been deleted anywhere because
that's because we stood up against you.
Do it.
We wouldn't let your bullying ways
to do it. And again, let's do your talking on the pitch here, Ger. Maybe turn up for a quiz for once. Maybe deliver. Maybe all that information that is stored there.
I'm last season's reigning champion. The entire year, I won the end of the year easily.
Nathan, it's like winning the League Cup, Ger.
I've got about 6 in a row.
You
Phil beat me once in the last year. I've been beaten once.
You won the Community Shield after I won the title, is what happened.
Let's see.
I just want to make the point here, Nathan, that I actually bet you a couple of weeks ago, but also in terms of performances this week, Gilroy has had Lions all week this week, so he's going to be
exactly.
a good fun.
If you showed up to the office once in your while, Tommy, you would find out that is not actually factually correct. I literally walked into the studio at 6 o'clock this morning and went, oh, I'm not on air today. So go on.
Oh, no, you didn't do that, did
This
you?
is very boring for the people out there, Tommy. Very, very boring.
Okay.
Well,
Owen is going to quickly push it along now because the topic of people coming into the office is coming up, and he won't want to be a part of that.
That is true.
Shots fired. Look at that. A napalm from Murphy from home.
Wow.
Our last contestant today, moving swiftly on, believes that the Earth is flat, that 9/11 was an inside job, and that the moon landings did not happen. He's allowed conspiracy theorists to flood his DMs over the past few weeks with allegations of collusion in this quiz. And despite appealing to a large section of the internet, he's embarrassed his family, his club, and his county. Give it up for the Meath Hillbilly, Tommy Rooney.
I can't believe we buried the lead.
Where that was going.
I can't believe this is unbelievable stuff. Has this been made public properly? Have we talked about this on the actual quiz itself?
We pointed to it last week where Tommy brought this to the table, that there was some sort of conspiracy going on where I would give you easier questions, Ger, and an incorrect question by all accounts. But that information was patently false.
I listened back to last week's quiz because I looked at Tommy Rooney's Twitter and thought, ooh, controversy. I better be aware of this to see what cheating is going on, so I'm ready for it next week. And it turns out he just went online throwing out random accusations, mainly against yourself, which I just wouldn't stand for, Owen, if I was you. I would get onto HR quite quickly. But it was embarrassing, humiliating, and sort of typical what we expect from a Meath footballer at this stage. It's always somebody else's problem. Oh, the Dublin footballers, look at the resources. They get everything, we get nothing. Instead of standing up for themselves like men and winning on the pitch where it counts. No, the new Meath is excuses. Trevor Giles would laugh in your face, Tommy. In fact, he wouldn't even look at your face right now.
That's it. He would blank him. Your deep throat didn't prove to be very all the president's men, did he? It was,
no, lads, look, I'll be honest, hands up, it backfired on me last week. I thought I was making a case that I still believe exists.
Explain the case.
I didn't know where you're going with the conspiracy theories.
Explain the case.
You know, explain the case. The case is that the crappy quiz isn't about competition.
It's
the
fixed.
Crappy quiz is about narrative.
The crappy quiz
about
was
narrative.
Fixed, essentially.
It's always been about narrative.
And,
essentially, yeah.
And you had
Always
evidence. You had documentary evidence. Somebody had gone back and found proof of this. A smoking gun, Tommy. Tell us about the smoking gun.
I shouldn't have trusted Fergus on Instagram. I shouldn't have.
Well, you know.
Okay, I shouldn't have put all my eggs in one basket. I should have waited till I got more evidence. I put my hands up. I made a rookie mistake.
Fergus screen grabbed the amount of assists that Leroy Sané.
I don't know how he managed to do it. How did he manage to screen grab from October 2018?
All the way back in 2018, which was erroneous. Leroy Sané is the second most gifted creator of goals who is from the landmass of Germany. As I had correctly answered, you did embarrass yourself.
Let's move on.
It's not about the quiz. It's not about the quiz, I remember now. Apparently, according to Tommy, the loser. It's about the narrative. Unfortunately for you, Tommy, your narrative is losing all the time, and that cannot be changed.
I'm making stuff up.
We'll see.
That is
pretty average here.
Don't look at the messages that slide into your DMs, Tommy. Just don't do that in future. Block them whatever website they may be sending to you, however much they ask you to pay per private cam show. Just ignore those messages in future. But thanks a million, Fergus, via Tommy, for getting in touch. As ever, the format, it's a classic crappy quiz with a series of questions on different themes. Then it's on to the slip and slide of trivia, which is the rapid fire round. You can podcast the crappy quiz on otbsports.com or the OTB Sports app. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to click the thumbs up, even if you contribute nothing but misery to your day. Round one, the boring questions round, and it's never multiple choice. Ger, Oisin Mullen is the latest Mayo man to win the Young Footballer of the Year award. Can you name all of the others?
Diarmuid O'Connor. How many am I supposed to name here on?
There are three names.
Can I just make the point to Jojo? Don't be hitting that buzzer early, man. Just keep an eye on it.
Teacher.
Yeah.
You've had enough of this.
Killian O'Connor.
How do we know that the chair's not cheating when we can't see him?
Well, because everybody else can see me, and I'm on the camera. And did Killian win it twice? Does he count as a second name or?
Yeah, Killian won it twice. Diarmuid O'Connor won it twice. So there's one more name that you're missing. TikTok.
I know it, Jared.
This was supposed to be for Nathan, but it was too easy, so I gave it to you, Ger, and I thought you might get it. Nathan doesn't know.
I know it.
Come on, answer the bloody question.
Come on, he doesn't know it, Owen.
Is it...
Just pick a player.
Give us a name.
Lee Keegan.
No, it's not Lee Keegan.
The real base to Ballyhonus.
Keith
It
Higgins.
is the real base to Ballyhonus, Keith Higgins. Correct.
07. No, it wasn't.
06.
05?
06. Won the under-21 All-Ireland, got to the All-Ireland final at senior level. Don't know what happened then.
Question one for you, Nathan. Who is the oldest player to have lined out in this year's Six Nations so far?
Here, come on. Ridiculous question.
It's like such outrage for such a question that like limits itself to only a few people.
The oldest player to play in the Six Nations.
There were 6 countries.
You're giving it, I thought for a second the way you were giving it out, it was Tommy's question is so bloody easy.
Oh, has Sergio Parise retired? Has Sergio Parise retired, Jojo? I feel like he has retired, but then I feel like there would have been more of a deal made of it if he had retired. I'm going to go for Sergio Parise.
Parise? No, it's not Parise.
Has he retired?
Yes.
Yes.
Like there was a big deal made out of it.
I thought there should have been a bigger deal made out of it. That's what I was thinking. I don't remember.
Do you remember, Nathan? Do you remember that they made quite a big deal out of Brian O'Driscoll retiring? They floated that thing across the pitch. Well, they effectively did exactly the same thing for Sergio Parise for about 4 years.
Is it Sexton?
It's Sexton.
I mean, come on, that's the easiest question of all time. It was clearly Johnny Sexton. He's 100 years old.
Is Sexton the oldest?
In fairness, I thought it was Alan Wynne-Jones, but Sexton was born in the same year, but 2 months prior to Alan Wynne-Jones. So Sexton is the oldest player in the Six Nations. Tommy, Aston Villa banned their players from playing fantasy football after Jack Grealish's injury leaked last weekend. But can you tell me who the number one owned player in the official Fantasy Premier League game currently is?
Oh, Jesus. I haven't looked at my team since September.
Follow the good stories, Tommy.
At the minute, it would be the most owned player in the Fantasy Premier League is...
Good question.
Jesus. Who is it?
The narrative is your dull stories and time wasting, Tommy.
It could only be a couple of players.
It could only, so spit them out.
You know.
Come on.
I'm possibly thinking that it could be.
No, this is it.
No, this is your answer.
This is your answer.
You don't need to put this out there. Just
come on.
Unless you have an interesting story behind one of your guesses, just get the answer out there, Tommy.
I never have any interesting stories.
Well, exactly.
I think the most owned player in the Fantasy Premier League right now is Bruno Fernandes.
Correct. Tommy gets a point. 1-0 to Tommy. Look at this. The heavyweight clash of Nathan and Ger, and they're already a point down. Round 2.
It's all about the narrative, boys.
Why are you body shaming us, Owen? That's not very nice.
Yeah, sorry about that. Welterweight. Round 2 is the Italian sport round.
Now you're making it worse. Now you're we couldn't be heavyweights. What? Screw you, buddy.
We just had the Italian sport round. I just had a question on it. Well, it wasn't. Yeah. Okay.
Ahead of Ireland's annual day of national self-confidence this Saturday, this round will test your knowledge on Italian sport at large. Ger, I think therefore I play. It said Italian sport in general. Sure. I think therefore. I think therefore I play is the autobiography of which Italian sports person?
Pirlo.
Ew.
What did he say? Pirlo. Correct.
Come on.
Nathan.
I've been screwed over.
There has only been one Formula One Drivers' World Championship winner in a shiny Italian Ferrari since Michael Schumacher. Can you name him?
Formula One questions bring up bad memories of my failed Blackboard Jungle day when I bottled it on a Formula One question, which I was obsessed with at the time, and I've never fully forgiven myself for since.
Cool story.
What round did you go out in?
Cool story, bro.
Oh, first, we went out to... Actually, I think did our former producer Mick McCarthy go there to Marion College?
Yeah.
You know at the start of Blackboard Jungle when you come on and you have to say how great your school is. So we were in 1979. Shut up, Tommy. In 1979, we won the minor C under 16 C Connacht title in hurling. Marion College come on, were like, We are 12 years in a row we have won the All-Ireland Water Polo Contest.
Well, the angry producer Mick, as he was at pains to point out, the school's not posh, but they do have their own swimming pool. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Well, that's not normal.
It's right in the middle of Ballsbridge. They have their own swimming pool, but we're not posh. Come on. So we lost in the first round. Mike, the question I got wrong was 2 Brazilian drivers who won the Formula 1 World Championship. And or 3. So I missed Emerson Fittipaldi. I was pissed off about that. Sebastian Vettel.
No, it's not Sebastian Vettel.
Sean Lacey.
How do I get crap for boring
Kimi
stories?
Raikkonen.
It's Kimi Raikkonen, yeah.
Right.
Kimi Raikkonen.
No Blackboard Jungle stories are ever boring, Tommy. That's just deserved.
If you find them boring, it means you weren't good enough to get on it, Tommy.
Yeah.
No, it means that I'm too young to have ever seen it.
All right.
Tommy, name the last Italian footballer to appear on a cover of FIFA.
Lentini. Baggio.
Alejandro Del Piero.
Tommy's 2 from 2.
Thank you, boys.
I'm under pressure.
Can I say FIFA 2005?
It was FIFA 2004. I think.
Deduct a point.
Are you accidentally skewing questions in Tommy's favour because of the allegations of bias that he's made? Is that what's happened here? He's got.
No, definitely go the other way.
He's in your head.
He's just stepped up his game. Round 3 is the sticky toffee round. After their first 21st century win at Anfield, it's time we all gave Everton Football Club the respect they deserve. This round is going to test you all on the recent history of the blue side of Liverpool.
Not recent. Give us like 80s and 90s history. Come on. Change the questions.
Sure. Everton famously broke into the Premier League's top 4 in 2005 before getting knocked out in the 3rd qualifying round of the following season's Champions League. Who knocked them out?
So easy.
Villarreal.
Again.
Correct.
Come on, Owen.
Come on.
Nathan.
Soft questions, Jer. Come off it, like. They played once in the Champions League.
Nathan, name Everton's all-time top Premier League goal scorer.
Premier League now.
Be careful here, Jojo.
Do you include the old First Division in that?
He just said Premier League.
Is it Dixie Dean? It's Dixie Dean. Go for Dixie Dean, Nathan. Go on. I'll give you that one.
I'm tempted to go for Dixie Dean. All-time...
Graham Sharp, maybe? He's a good one.
No, yeah. See, they haven't had many great Premier
Gary
League
Lineker.
strikers.
He was good. Pat Nevin.
Yeah, Jesus, that decade before the Premier League, they were fine, weren't they?
Yeah.
Why did
Romelu
you get away with all
Lukaku.
this?
Correct. Romelu Lukaku, 68
Tommy, I'm on your
goals.
side. What are you talking about?
Oh, no, Jerry, you're not. You're on 0, man. You're on 0 points.
I'm on
You're
2
trying to
points.
skew the quiz here.
I'm on 2 points.
Are you on 2?
I mean, yes.
I'm on 1.
2. I've got 2 right. I'm on 2.
Jer's on 2.
Yes.
Jer's on 2. Nathan's on 1. Tommy's on 2. Tommy
How
has to
has
go to
he got
3.
2?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Tommy, Carlo Ancelotti has managed in all 5 of the top leagues in Europe, but has failed to win the league in one of them. Which one?
Spain.
Correct. Tommy, 3 from 3. Didn't get the job done with Real Madrid. Round 4 is the fun-free magic number round. Tommy's back, everyone. He's back. His mind games have worked. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. I'm going to state that we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper. I'm also going to have to ask for your pens once the music ends. So if you don't mind, give us the following number. The number of British teams who made it to the knockout stages of this season's Europa League, plus the number of tries scored by Ireland so far in this year's Six Nations, plus the number of times France have made it to the FIFA World Cup final, plus the number of accounts Roy Keane is currently following on Instagram. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads. Okay, so the amount of British teams who made it to the knockout stages of this season's Europa League, number of tries Ireland have scored so far in the 2021 Six Nations, the number of times France have appeared in the World Cup final, and then the number of people Roy Keane follow on Instagram. Sure, what do you got?
8.
Nathan?
10.
Tommy?
9.
The answer is 10. Nathan gets the 3 points.
Yes. I knew it. I knew I had it nailed. Never
Nathan. Number of British teams in the Europa League knockout stages.
Leicester, Man United, Spurs, and Arsenal. 4.
Rangers.
No.
Rangers. Oh, you
5.
bluffer. You got away with it, you bluffer.
Ireland have scored.
I thought you said Premier League teams.
No, he said
British teams.
British.
Oh, balls. Whew.
Six Nations tries. Ireland scored twice.
2.
France have made it to 3 World Cup finals. 98, 06, 2018. And Roy Keane follows no one.
Oh, thank God.
It's only.
I thought he was.
What did you have?
He was following
what did you
one.
have, Nathan?
I thought today I started following him, but I clicked on it and he was following one person. But obviously, thankfully, I was wrong.
Oh.
Because I misheard that first question. I would have been bust.
Spurs, United, Leicester, Rangers. Who's the 5th?
Arsenal.
Oh, bloody hell. I also forgot about the World Cup final that I was actually at. I forgot about the one that's...
They give you an opportunity to bring it up, though. So,
well, there you go.
You know.
Got so much more respect for you now.
Swings and roundabouts.
The scores are Nathan 4, Tommy 3, Ger 2. It is finally poised, and now it is on to the final. Our winner tonight.
I want to suggest a change here, where the person who's last goes first in this round to make it a bit more exciting. I think it's a good idea. We should put it to an Instagram poll. The results are in. Yes, they say yes. Good idea.
Well, would we not just be rewarding failure?
We're making entertainment, Nathan. I realise that low down your list of priorities as you work in the entertainment industry, but sure, look.
Well, it all sounds a bit Andy Farrell to me, Ger.
Add that onto the list of things to ask the focus group. Should we ask people at the bottom of the list to go first in the rapid fire? Our winner tonight will be decided in the round that separates the men from the boys, the Mike Cats from the Mighty Dogs. It's no team in particular, ridiculously easy rapid fire round. The score you get in this round will be added to your score in the previous round. 40 seconds for everyone to answer from the same set of questions. We're going to start with Nathan, then on to Tommy, then on to Ger. If you get a question correct, you get another one, and you keep getting questions until you get one wrong. And once you get one wrong, you get deducted a point.
The Mighty Dogs is by asking who they are. Am I revealing something horrific about my cultural gaucheness?
No, it was a really shy moment of script writing by me.
My cat.
No, it was really
my dog.
It was really good. My cat, my dog, not Mighty.
Oh, who's my dog?
There is some.
Yeah, what are you drinking this morning?
It doesn't matter. No, he's right. It wasn't that funny. I was like, I just wanted to get this.
No, I
thought it was really funny. I thought it was really good.
It was like, it was going to have to come up at some point. I tried my best. It always comes in. Like we're sitting there in the morning and like we'd have a good rugby pundit on and someone's like, my cat can't get things right. And deep down, like, this is so funny. This is hilarious. This is the content we're here for. But of course, you can't be like that because we're very serious broadcasters. But now I've had my moment. So consider me free of the shackles of all the My Cat jokes in the world. Nathan Murphy, are you ready?
My cat can't get things right.
It's whatever it may be. I don't know. My cat can't teach his players how to offload, for example. It's hilarious because, you know, it does. Nathan, are you ready for this?
Are you ready for this?
You ready?
Wow. The things that you think you're listening to Owen just do a straightforward interview, but it is heads.
Oh, so many jokes. So many jokes. My cat can't teach his. So my cat is what you're hearing.
Is it because he's a cat?
It's because you run them together, my cat.
It's been
extra. Come on, Owen, let's get into this. Come on.
You're
delaying the inevitable.
Nathan, your 40
don't
seconds.
The first question.
Nathan, your 40 seconds starts now. What nationality is João Cancelo?
Portuguese.
Correct. Jordan Brown plays what sport?
Snooker.
Correct. Name any club not called Celtic that Neil Lennon has managed.
Bolton.
Correct. Name Paul Pogba's agent.
Mino Raiola.
Correct. Karabakh is a football team based in which country?
Azerbaijan. Carrect.
Amad Diallo joined Manchester United from which side?
Atalanta.
Correct. Who lost to Naomi Osaka in last weekend's Australian Open final?
Oh, Carney.
No, Jennifer Brady. What nationality is Ozan Kabak, Tommy?
Turkish.
Correct. Ireland lost the 2018 Women's Hockey World Cup final to which country?
Spain.
No, Netherlands. And that is it. Jared doesn't even get a question.
Oh, that should have been straightforward. I knew it was an Irish sounding name.
Very boring. I'm telling you, you've got this wrong. You've got this. Whoever's in last place needs an opportunity to get back in it. So kind of.
Congratulations.
There's no.
Well done.
That was a destruction. What did we go with? 9-3-2. Wowzers. That is a demolition.
Kudos.
You're humiliated. Relegate Tommy. Get somebody in.
No, come on.
Who's keeping score for you there, Nathan?
You fluked it. You
It's
fluked
almost
around.
like you have, some.
Well, part of my mental routine is I also keep the score while I'm doing it, so I'm not stressing.
Yeah.
So I'm keeping on top of
Nathan's
things.
Nathan's face when he's answering rapid fire questions is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. He really strains to get it out.
Oh.
The Azerbaijan one, we should really clip that one.
Well, congratulations on straining and getting it out to win this thing, Nathan. Do you have a victory speech?
This has been terrible.
It's all just part of the process, Owen. I'm here. What's that? I think that's 4 in a row now.
From the very start.
Please.
No, that's 1 in a row, Nathan. That's 1 in a row. Don't be cheating.
No. I'm unbeaten in my last 4, so please provide some decent opposition.
You completely fluked that. You completely fluked the magic fun-free magic number round. You completely fluked it. You got it.
That's like
half of them right, half of them wrong.
You're going to come into some sort of XG type thing where, despite the fact I won 9-3-2, so I got more answers correct than both of you put together.
Except none of us. I didn't get it. I knew all of those.
A Murphy
every single one of those. Every single one of those.
Murphy masterclass.
Thank you very much.
Too early, Jer.
Well done.
And a really warm welcome to any of our new Crappy Quiz viewers this week. It's like this every single week. Congratulations to Nathan. We'll see you here this time next week.
I hate you all.
This one.
Oh, you're kidding me. September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
I know it's not right.
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
When he's talking about the lack of offloads in Ireland's game, and the stats are pretty startling around that. When you look at the way Ireland are setting up, is it a bit of confidence that's missing? Is it a game plan? What do you put down the lack of creativity and excitement in the Ireland attack at the moment?
I think it's those two things. I think it's kind of hard to properly understand what they're trying to do shape-wise. I'm still very much on a learning curve on that. I guess what I would hope for a little bit more from Ireland is just showing a little bit more ambition. I watched the French game back again today, and to be honest with you, it felt as though they threw more offloads than the 3 that they were jotted down for them. Now, I don't know what the metrics exactly are, with regard to offloads, because I looked at a 10-minute sequence and I definitely saw 3 offloads in that period of time. They didn't always go to hand, but Ireland are definitely trying to push the pass in certain circumstances. But I think they can do more. I think they can be a bit more ambitious as well, particularly from their launch plays. From scrum, in the best place to launch an attacking scrum is between your own 22 and the opposition 40. That is the best place. And twice against France, we just saw 2 setups and then box kicks out of that territory. Let's show a bit of ambition, a bit of intent, a bit of hunger to try and cut defences apart. And they can do it with good quality passing, good lines of running. You've got players that are capable of causing fractions in the opposition defence. So we've got to try and show that intent, because I think that's what the public is crying out for. And I'm sure as players, they're crying out for it. No one wants to chase kicks all day. No one wants to go after box kicks. Keith Earl certainly doesn't. So let's try and get them playing this heads up, ball in hand, and not play a little bit afraid and think about that territorial game and, that kicking game, that the stats might add up, that, the international teams that kicks more win more. Let's try and show a little bit of intent, that it feels as though we're progressing and we've got an appetite to play a bit more than maybe we've shown. I think the knock-on effect of that is then the offload game. And I saw Andy Dunn talking about, Gary Ringrose. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, with his offload in the Wales game. For me, the issue wasn't that offload. The issue was the Conor Murray slap on to Ian Henderson that then didn't go to hand. You can't compound an error with another error, and that was the problem. I'm all for trying those passes, and some will stick and others won't. But I guess it's a mentality of understanding and seeing the situations and the scenarios when best to throw them. There's a brilliant example in the French game on the Olivon try that when they made good inroads on the Ficou carry, Jalibert got the pass then, and straight away you could see his head kind of twitching into what exactly he was about to do. He identified by the way he shaped his body that he wasn't going to make a line break. But if you see the way he cut back in, Van der Fleer over pushed, Henshaw got stuck on some of the front runners, and so there was a bit of a gap. But straight away, he positioned his body to get into a place to offload. He wasn't looking to make a line break. And I think that's sometimes the error that you get caught into. You get drawn into thinking you can make a line break, but in doing so, you get hit hard, and you're not in a controlled position to make the offload. Whereas he accelerated into the space, got the ball into his right arm away from Henshaw, and straight away arched it around Henshaw's back into Marchand, who did the exact same again. 2 offloads, Dupont's offload, they're in behind, one more phase, and they're in the corner. Like it seemed very simple, but it was just a state of mind of realizing don't overplay your hand sometimes. And I think we're guilty of doing that, particularly in the forwards, in trying to be ball carriers. The best place to offload isn't in the middle of your power output. It's not at the end of it, because you're way more in control of the ball when you're in the middle of that collision zone, rather than right at the end when you're falling and trying to throw the miracle offload. If you can get to a position where maybe you could make another couple of yards, but actually you pull back and you change the point of contact, and then the next person does that again. The cumulative effect of that is it keeps the defence guessing. They can't realign, they can't get organised, and that's where you get mismatches. So I just think it's a little bit of a switch of mindset needed to not try and extract every last yard from each carry. Pull it back a little bit. Think about the Toulouse teams or the French teams of old. They don't go to the nth degree of where their carry is capable of getting to. They pass before that shot comes in or before the big collision comes. And I think that is something that you can teach, but it's also something that players should understand from being in that situation multiple times.
Does it suggest, though, a fear of losing possession?
No, I don't think it does. I think it's just having an awareness that you're far more likely to make more inroads in Test rugby by changing the point of contact than by bludgeon, particularly a team like Ireland. South Africa, different mindset because of the size of their ball carriers. We aren't that type of team and never will be, never have been. So we've got to think our way around it. We have this recurring conversation about the offload game and being realistic. It's the only way we're going to be able to progress and sustain that progression at that next level that we've managed to achieve in the past, under Joe Schmidt, is to evolve our game and push the pass a little bit more, because we come up short against the more physical teams. So we've got to try and change and modify things slightly to make life a little bit easier. Teams are too organised now, and they'll happily defend for 20, 25 phases. And we punch ourselves out. That's what happens. We end up going nowhere. We'll hold on to lots of possession. The stats will look great, but ultimately we don't do anything with the possession. Whereas you need to push the pass a little bit, and some will go to ground. Some won't, be beautiful viewing on a Monday morning video session. But we will get some scores from the ones that do stick. And I think that's the necessity of where this team needs to push themselves.
So we'd prefer 5 players to bring the ball forward 3 yards at a time and take the impact and all that goes with that, rather than the quick offload, take the risk and maybe one player gets it 15, 20 yards and the relief that gives everybody else.
Totally. But in those 3 potential offloads, the point of contact changes each time. So the potential setting of the next ruck is uncertainty with each one. When someone's carrying, when you have a bullocking run and impact, and you might carry someone for 5, 6, 7 meters, it's very clear where that ruck is going to be. And so the defensive system can just fan back, make sure they get their spacings. But if you have guys interlinking and, you know, little changes of point of contact, and the perfect example of that is the Olivon, you know, try, the 3 offloads. Change. Ireland are in behind. They're disorganised out on the wing. You've got Rhys Ruddock, you know, second last defender, Gibson Park. It was unlucky in that the bounce pass is very hard to read. But straight away, France were in a really positive position to be able to take advantage because they continually change that point of contact. And it's something, you know, it's another thing is anytime you watch videos of like the likes of Australia, New Zealand, and you only get snippets of them at training sessions, whenever they go and form a ruck and they're playing, you know, uncontested, it feels like at the point of the ruck, they always throw an offload. I don't think we ever do that. I don't think you'll ever see someone. You just go to the ground and, you know, look at long bodying it.
Is it a skill set issue?
It's a mindset as well. I don't think it's a skill set because I can see Ireland pushing the pass. They're not as good. Some players are better than others, and some, you know, it mightn't innately be part of their game. But CJ Stander, after Olivon scored the try, we kicked off. They kicked back down to us, and Stander won a collision and then offloaded to Keenan, who was in support play, and he made a little half break, chipped over the top. Now, on another day, he holds that ball, or the defense is slightly more disorganized, and that's a half chance. So we're very capable of doing it. I think we just need to do it more, and particularly players like Stander that we know are brilliant ball carriers. If he can just pull back 10 or 15% and not think about that extra couple of yards, but think about the offload, that will lend itself to our whole attacking shape, our whole attacking game being considerably better, because you stop the defence from knowing exactly the certainties of where things are going to be and then organise themselves as a result.
Our rugby coverage is with thanks to Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team of us, everyone in. Brian O'Driscoll is with us on this Thursday evening. The problem, I guess, now for Ireland is that it's Italy, and there's an expectation not just to win, but to win well and play that style of rugby. And you've gone up against Italy many times. Can you then read a lot into that because of the quality of opposition? Presumably all of this is far easier against an Italy than it will be against an England.
That's not Ireland's problem, though, this weekend, who the opposition is. They've got to go out and think about a performance. Like, the result is important from Andy Farrell's point of view, of course, because there would be huge pressure heaped on him and the coaching ticket if Ireland don't win. That's the reality of where we are. We've lost 2 games. You know, to lose 3 in a row would, of course, be massive pressure situation. But Ireland can't worry about that. They've got to think about how they evolve their game plan. And by being collision winners and by doing those things of changing the point of contact and keeping Italy guessing, the thing a defence wants is certainty. And as soon as you create uncertainty, you get mismatches, you get individuals defending together that don't normally do that. And that's where you get those mismatches. That's where you get James Lowe. That's where you get Larmers on the ball, an ability to beat, you know, tight 5 out in the wider channels. And that's where we'll get our scores. There just hasn't been an awful lot of that. And I feel for these players because you can sense that there's a frustration in them that they want to cut loose. Partly the game plan, partly the willingness to constantly kick the game, kick the ball, but also just not having, you know, softening the defence enough because of that lack of point of contact change has made life more difficult for them, having to create their own space.
It's interesting you say that you get the sense the players want to cut loose. Listening to Mike Catt on Monday, you get the sense that Mike Catt wants the players to cut loose as well. So there's clearly some sort of a breakdown somewhere.
Yeah, there is. And I don't know what it is, because you know, you look at the structures, and I do think we're helped this weekend by having Tyke Furlong starting. He's definitely our best ball player in the pod that we play. You know, when you look at that pod of 3 with the back out the back, he's comfortably the best at taking it aggressively to the line, offering the tip inside or the tip outside, but also that pull back to that back, you know, 2 or 3 meters behind, you know, for the next phase play to be launched. I think we need more players capable of doing that, because it sits the defence down on the inside, and the knock-on effect is it creates uncertainty to the wider defenders, and that's where you'll have the likes of Gary Ringrose and Larmer exploiting uncertainty and dog legs and breaks in the link in the link chain. So I think you look at, Connors needs to be in there. I think James Ryan has to be in there, carrying with intent, but also carrying with intent and still having the ability to play make as well. And that's where you look at the likes of the All Blacks. That's where they're exceptional, because they're all ball players. You look at Brodie Retallick and Sam Whitelock, their ability to carry to the line and throw those different passes. That's what's distinguished them from the rest of the second rows in the world for a number of years. We have to have the ability to evolve into that type of team that can keep teams guessing with uncertainty as to what we're going to do.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.